Hello, everybody. This is us.
Hello.
We're here.
This is
Table
us.
Scraps.
This is us.
The
This is
Paper
me.
Dungeon cast.
It's
Or at least
DJ
half of
Grant and
us.
Aaron back at it again,
Yes, sir.
like the good old days.
The three most important ones.
Yep, pretty much.
That's what
Obviously,
our
the main
audience says
characters.
anyways.
Yep.
That's right.
Well, hi. Welcome to Table Scraps. It is a show that we do. It's about D&D. You've probably been here before.
Probably.
What things to cover first? We have socials, Twitter, TikTok,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
all sorts of things like that. YouTube Shorts, they're
Definitely.
great.
Hit us up on our Discord.
Instagram.
We happen to be doing a Q&A in the next couple of weeks, and so we
Yes.
need questions for that. So definitely go hit us up on Discord.
Using-
Send us a tweet.
And you
Whoever.
can use the hashtag AskTPD. Did I get that right, Grant?
Yes,
did.
this is
Okay,
also
perfect.
us asking you, please send us questions. We
Yes,
really
please,
like
questions.
answering
We
questions
like
from the
answering
audience.
questions.
Other than that, as you can clearly see, I'm wearing this super sick shirt, which is made by our wonderful Lydia Korn. She has a store. You should buy her stuff because it's really cool.
Our
I
little
believe
starchy.
her Christmas collection is out right now.
It's pretty
No
rad.
way. I haven't even seen it yet. I'm a bad
I
friend.
know, 100%. Me too.
No, Grant, you're not a bad friend. She didn't show it to us or tell us about it.
She made an
she works
Instagram
nonstop.
post.
And she just
Oh.
did it and
Where
then
have I
didn't mention it to any of us.
Where have I been?
Basically, she's just out here being a baller and she doesn't need us.
That's probably
I
true.
think she actually did tell us.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
We're at the mercy of just Lydia's decisions.
My camera's
Basically,
angled poorly.
she's in charge now.
She's the one secretly pulling the strings. We've been over this.
Oh, jeez.
We know you
Yeah,
listen to
they're
Lydia, DJ.
Um,
She's the one making the story happen.
Lydia makes diabolical ideas that I love, so.
we have a show on Mondays that we do. That's normally what this is about. We talk about the show. Our last main series episode for this year was last Monday. So we won't be getting back to that until the year ends. We will be back sometime in January. I don't know, like a week after? I don't know. Something like that?
I think
January
it's the-
10th.
January
Yeah,
10th.
yeah, yeah.
That's the number. So what will we be doing in the next couple of weeks? Answer. Drew will be DMing this Monday?
Yes, this upcoming Monday, which is what date?
Yeah.
The 20th, because I fly out from
It is
Louisville
the
on the same day.
It's the
It's the
20th.
20th, bro.
What's it?
It's the 20th.
It's the 20th.
4 days.
It is the 20th. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the week after that,
Oh,
we will
man, we need to
be
record that.
re-streaming the first episode of the Paper Dungeon.
It's kind of like a quote unquote remastered version. It'll have some better audio, pretty much.
Good.
And we
Yeah.
should all be, probably all of us, will be in chat, just kind of reacting to it alongside the audience. It'll be a really great time. And I think, honestly, it'll probably be, I think, one of my favorite things we've done. Just because we'll be able to cringe together
be
at the
rad, dog.
old school role playing from like the late end of 2020.
Bro.
That's when we started. Yeah. It'll be a good time.
Oof. And then after that is going to be the filing cabinet that we were talking about. That's where your questions will come in, do stuff like that. It'll be great. And then we'll be back at it with that hot content on Mondays. So the question is, what exactly do we want to
Dang it,
talk
that
about?
means I have to bring Grotz in
Yep.
on the 10th. Dang it.
Yep.
Sorry.
Do we want to talk about thoughts on the last episode that we had, and some? Do we have any thoughts for the future, anything like that? Do we want to talk about what exactly we're doing for the Christmas one shot? Because we obviously don't know the story, but we are allowed to tell each other like what our characters are because we've apparently known each other for a while.
You know, I vote we talk about the last session. I might not be able to say the entire stream today. Second of all, I won't actually be in the Christmas one shot because
shoot.
I will be flying. I'll be moving that day from Louisville back to Nebraska.
I completely forgot.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and chat about the session because I don't have much to offer for the one shot.
Well, alrighty then. Last session was just a combat session. We fought a black dragon, an ancient black dragon, for the entire time.
Was not supposed to be an only combat session, but I'm glad it did.
Well,
To be honest,
hey, look,
it kind of felt like the perfect end cap of the year. It's like such an epic thing. We just fought a huge dragon. That's like the essence of D&D apart from role playing. It's like we're just celebrating the end of the year with a
Well, it
huge
is half
dragon
of the
fight.
title. If we had a dungeon, then we'd be in a
Then we'd
really
be
good
golden.
situation.
And also, by the way, spoilers. I know this is a fact of Table Scraps. There are spoilers in Table Scraps, right?
Oh yeah.
Just spoilers for the previous episodes. So this is for what, episode 52?
Yes.
Up to that. So, spoilers. At the end, it was one of my favorite moments of the campaign, and I don't know if everybody else felt the same way. I remember I was cheering because I thought it was so fun to end on the note of the re-encampment of all of the displaced peoples from the war cheering because they had finally won a battle, and our group was an instrumental piece of why they did. And so they start retreating.
Your group
Everybody
was the
below
sole
us,
reason they won the battle.
yes, the thousands of people below us fighting, just cheering, and like the sounds echoing through the hills, and we won against the tyrants of the world currently. And it was just such an epic moment. I loved it. I thought it was the perfect way to close 2021 and all the story, and then like open up the next year on like post winning that war or that battle, I guess, and then moving on towards probably the Crimson Wastes. I thought it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, I was super happy with how it ended up going. I wasn't planning on it being the full 4-hour session. I was planning on you guys doing the first half of it being combat, and then the second half would be you guys working towards getting towards the Crimson Waste.
Well,
I'm really happy that it turned out to be a full 4 hours because that was awesome and it worked out really well.
So it's so funny because first off, it didn't feel like 4 hours. Like by the
No,
time
not at all.
normally
No, it
when
went
you're
by
done
really
with like a
fast.
4-hour fight, you're like, oh my god.
You're like, oh, let's just get this done with.
It feels like it's dragging
Yeah.
on when there's combat. It didn't feel that way.
And
this
I didn't really
episode.
feel like that. And then the other thing is, there were so many different things that could have happened that made this combat under 4 hours.
Like what?
There were so many. Well, for the first 4 rounds, I wasn't able to deal any damage.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had rolled like a 1 on the d6, then we get track damage for an additional 3 rounds of combat. 2, I
True.
forgot my bat had 50 extra hit points, which means that when Track flew after it and then his bat got roasted by Dragon's Breath, which also DJ managed to regain like 8 times throughout combat.
I used it 4 times
That's so many
across
times,
like
dude.
10 rounds of combat.
And it's what,
Excuse
reroll
you.
on a 5 or 6.
Yeah.
That means that, or regain on a 5 or 6. That means that almost 50% of the time it had its Dragon's Breath off on a
No.
1/3 chance.
40% of the time on a 33% chance. That's pretty average. That's just above average because it's a 33% chance and I got it 40%.
Doug, I have ran dragons in combat before. You know how often I have actually in over all of the dragons I have used. You know how often I've recharged their dragon breath weapon?
2.
In one combat? I'm gonna say twice.
Over every single dragon I have ran. How often have I recharged their dragon breath?
3.
Okay, how many dragons have you ran?
5.
5? I'm gonna say 11 times.
3.
I got it.
It
I
was
knew it.
Seriously?
I have legitimately
Listen,
only
okay.
recharged a dragon's breath weapon 3
So you
times.
but you used it the first time because they automatically start
Yes.
with it, obviously. So you used it the first time, and then you only got 3 recharges. So only 3 of those 5 dragons got a recharge once in that combat.
And I'm pretty sure one of them it happened twice to it.
Man, I love being a player for you because I have such an advantage.
I know
compared to
it's
you.
it's ridiculous. I'm like the amount of like your ability to re-roll like to roll high enough to do fun things as a DM is unfair. I DM
Well,
and I'm like,
here's the
I've got
thing,
this
Aaron.
sick thing planned, and then it doesn't matter if, regardless of the dice you roll, you can't hit above a 3.
Here's the thing, Aaron. Another thing, I don't know if I know you've been DMing for a long time. You kind of taught me a lot of what I know, but I don't know if you know about this little thing of DM's plot convenience. you know, where you just kind of do what you want because you want it to happen.
The-
And as
so
long as it's not unfair,
Is this
you know.
DJ confessing that he fudges the
Is
rolls?
that he's just an
sometimes?
absolute
No.
liar?
I don't fudge the rolls often. Every once in a while, there's a little fudge somewhere, one way or another.
Yeah,
But
that kind of makes sense.
I do a very good job. I will say this proudly. I do a good job of making sure that it's balanced. Where I do a good job of making sure that there are some fudges that make it more dramatic, and there are some fudges that help you guys out.
So
I think that's cool. Also, like, you recently have been doing really good at providing deadly encounters, like, and us having a chance of winning. Because there's quite a few times, like, Track literally died. Granted, it was kind of a flub because the bat had more health than we thought.
Might have lived.
But you might have left. But
No,
but either
you
way,
wouldn't
I
have.
think
Might
they've
have
all
lived.
been
Figured out a
really
way.
interesting. I think they've got improved too. And so I'm not a superstitious person.
Thank you.
I'm not a superstitious person.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that the whole McKellep's blood joke is kind of true
It's
because like you roll like crazy and then Aaron only rolling well on D10s, literally only D10s,
it is
and like
it is
sometimes odd and
ridiculous how
even.
good I
It's
roll.
so funny.
It's really strange. Like
So-
Aaron has consistently the entire time I've known it. I've played D&D with Aaron for what, almost a decade now, 7 years
something
at
like,
least.
somewhere around there.
I never ever remember you rolling good. It's like always
No,
an anomaly.
it's-
DJ, I always remember rolling well.
The less used the dice is, the better I roll with it. So like D12s
Fair.
and D10s that are like, no one uses D10s
No one
and
uses
D12s.
those.
It's like D8s and
Aside from a
D6s. That's
barbarian.
what you do. D10s and D12s I crush consistently.
You know what you need to
Anything
do? Oh my
else?
gosh, Aaron.
Terrible.
Here's what you need to do. You need to play like a Goliath wild magic sorcerer that was given permission to like use a freaking great axe or whatever the one item is that has a
It's
D12.
a great axe, yeah.
Yeah, so you use your great axe. So you're constantly using that, and then you get to use the D10s for the wild magic, and your life will just be chaos.
Here's what I think we need. Aaron needs to just create a D10 system. And then
I mean, I've talked about this before,
yeah,
actually.
I think we have.
We have talked about this
And we
before.
need to then play it and release it as the Paper Dungeon or under Aaron's name, and then just play it on the Paper Dungeon. And then it's
Okay.
the only RPG that Aaron
There's a
will be decent
there's a couple
at
out there that
because
use D10.
he can roll it.
Just so
We
you all
need to
know,
find
just so you
those
all
and
know,
play
We
those.
claim this as intellectual property. Claim it right now. If any of the three of you watching
There's 4.
try and just come up with it, I'm just kidding.
One of
Hey,
them's Lydia,
Wizards,
but
Wizards of the Coast is watching, I think.
That is
maybe.
very-
No,
that-
not
ooh.
today.
Gosh, get outta
Wander,
here.
the understudy
No.
to
Don't
Wizards,
know.
is watching.
Um,
But yeah, that we need to find those D10 systems and play them because we need to test this theory.
dog, it's a dangerous game you're playing. But yeah, like,
Well, since you just bought like 6
and
RPGs,
none of them use D10s. They're all D8s, D8s
Dang
and
it.
D6s.
Oh no,
Yeah.
we're doomed.
Yep.
because
You know,
so
everybody
just
has
so you know,
sixes.
DJ, my rule on fudging dice as a DM, I don't fudge
Mm-hmm.
dice when it has the potential to deal damage, or
Nah, I don't care.
drastically change the dice and to change the like plot in a specific way. I will fudge dice for
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of comedy or terror. Like if it does not
Mm-hmm.
have a lasting effect except on the mental psyche of the players, that is I'll fudge 100% to ruin someone's gosh dang mind. But if it's like if it will potentially damage a character, not a chance. Or like change the plot in a way
Oh
that
my
they aren't
gosh.
intending.
Anything that's not
I would
plot
almost
specific,
argue that's worse,
does
Aaron.
well.
Yeah. Look, I don't beat you in the game, I beat you out of the game.
I really want to point something out. I feel seen here.
Yeah.
Wander said 3 of the people watching are TPD cast members. So we have like 1 person watching and it's
Nice.
It's just Wonder and the 4 of us.
Nice.
I also want to point out, I wish I would have pointed this out earlier. This is my last TPD stream of the year. Me, like being on stream. It's my last one of 2021. So it's kind of special to me. And I'm so glad we have a great turnout for it.
You gotta remember,
Hi,
no
I'm
one
here.
knows when
What's up, Wander?
table scraps happens, right?
It's only through Discord.
It is
That's
a little
the
bit
best
harder.
part.
It's only through Discord. And
I-
so as
I-
it goes, the longer it goes, we actually generally get pretty good turnouts over time.
Way better than this usually.
Look, it's overtime. It's overtime.
Way better than
gained
one
not to
person.
mention,
We
not to
gained a
mention,
viewer.
I said, hey,
Who's here? Say hi.
I said, hey guys, we'll be going live at 1:45 because you guys were like, oh yeah, like 15 minutes, 2 o'clock. So we're
Sorry.
15 minutes off. It happens. It
Hey,
happens.
We're sorry. We were working on a secret project that is going to be super hyped for you guys. So we're
For
sorry
next
that this
year.
15 minutes.
We were
Yeah.
working on a project for next
Ah, it's
year.
Maz.
Hey, Wizards of the Coast is here.
Mango is here. Oh,
Like
okay.
a-
So
like
now
a-
there's 3 people.
Like
There's
a
3.
mangonel, the thing that apparently no one can pronounce.
A
I
mango?
am
Oh, mangonel.
ridiculously
Yeah, the
upset
catapults.
at how you people have trouble. It's basic phonics. It's basic phonics.
Okay, that I've never heard that word in my life.
Phonics?
No, mangonel.
You don't have
Phonetically?
to. You look at the letters and you say mango. What does that say?
Wait.
Mango.
Mango. My
And then
favorite.
what does NEL sound like? Nell. You put them
Nell.
together. What do you mango nell?
Mango.
I mean, Aaron, I see your point. To be fair, most words in modern English are not pronounced phonetically. Second of all, the
Ooh.
lulz, Aaron, the memes. How funny is it to be like, yo, I shoot him with the mango?
You see, I'm fine with that.
Also-
The problem was you guys were like, is it like you were like just adding extra consonants and syllables.
A
Like just things.
Machiavellian.
Yeah, you're like
Magnolian.
a Machiavelli. Is it a? And like, there isn't even a C in it. There's not even a C. You're
we're
just throwing in random.
It's
It's like
cross cultural. It was
My
a
favorite
cross-cultural
part-
opportunity to bring between the rows into the main campaign.
My
and
favorite part
I would
was
also
how
specifically like to say, Lydia, you know that we deliberately choose to say your name wrong.
Yes. My favorite
I don't know
part
what
was
you're
how
talking
the
about. Lydia
word
Corn
would
is Lydia Corn.
the word would morph as we went, and DJ would go
Yeah.
with it. So we'd like
Oh, yeah.
say one thing, and DJ would respond with the same incorrect. Like at one point, I was like, "I think I want to fire the magnolia," and
Yeah,
DJ's
yeah,
like,
I'm like-
"Okay, you fire the magnolia," and I was like, "Yeah."
I messaged Drew. I'm like, could you send me the name of the weapons? First of all, he sends me the name of the like other one. He sends me the name of the one that isn't complicated.
The
Ballista.
Ballista. Thank you.
yeah, the ballista. Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And he sends the whole like stats and everything, all the damage it does. I'm like, no. I don't care
Just
about
want
the
the
actual
names.
thing. Send me the name of the. You have the letters in front of you. Type them out on a computer and send them to me, so I can tell you how to. And he sends it MANGOL, mangonel, GONEL. Excuse me. And I'm sitting here. I'm like, what? I was thinking that this was spelled in like Chinese or something. The way that you guys were, gosh dang.
I'm gonna let me just look. Let me just look. to
I'm
see
like,
if Drew
and
for
I'm
some
fine
reason
if it's
said
not
that.
even phonetically like if it's not actually pronounced mangonel.
Like maybe it's Mongnell or something.
Yeah, but like, in general, that should be your go-to word. Like that's what you
Yes.
come up with when you see the letters mangonel.
Here's the best part. DJ, like for pretty much everything, will spell things phonetically because it's just easy. He'll just make it sound like what it looks
Yeah.
like. And the
Basically.
one time we get a word that's like phonetically spelled, it's like
phonetically
it like
yes.
does not compute in our heads because we're like,
Yeah.
wait, this is actually a word that exists. Hold on, how do we say this?
It's not
This
even.
isn't
it's
a
not
word
even
we
like,
made up.
It's not even like one of those like words that when you look at it, you're like, okay, I could understand why people say cavalry when it's cavalry.
Or
But, like,
colonel.
Yeah.
That's
it's
like really
COL.
awkward to say, so I can understand why people say like cavalry instead of cavalry because that doesn't feel
Yeah.
right vocally.
Yeah.
Mangonel is the easiest thing. It's not even that difficult.
When you don't say corn,
So,
you say Corin.
I
and it
have to
hurts
bring this
every
up.
time. Corin.
I have to bring this up. You know what else is really easy to like
I don't know,
to-
something
to
like
Understanding how attack damage works. Understanding that you shouldn't
Casting-
use
casting the
message in
spell.
combat.
That
because
was
it
my
has
favorite
no
moment.
has nothing, and you're like, well, it could have done something. No, if the spell doesn't say that it does a thing, it doesn't do it. It's not how it works.
Oh my god.
My favorite part about that is I was literally crying. It was not like in fake things. I was like literally had tears streaming down my cheeks from how you were reacting to it, Aaron.
It was pain and laughter.
It was so funny.
I mentioned this off stream. This is a little behind the views look. First off, to give some context, Grant was going to cast a spell, and I was so excited because I'm like, yes, this is such a good use of that specific spell in this specific moment to do a thing that's really good. And then it turns out that it was not in range. And so he goes back and he's like, wait, I got it. And I'm like, oh, maybe he has something else. Maybe he's going to, I don't know, cast one of the multiple healing spells that I know that he has, because all of us are severely and dangerously injured to the point of death. Like, to the point where theoretically, if, I don't know, a specifically large-sized in context creature would have gotten healed multiple times in a row, he could have survived something that maybe he couldn't have beforehand. Just a theory. But, you know, that's completely besides the point. And then he says, I'm going to cast a message at the dragon.
Wait, what? What?
I mentioned it off of stream. 98% of that was legitimate. I would say 2% of it I faked a little bit because I'm like, this is going to be a great bit. But 98% of it was legitimate rage and anger.
Can confirm. This has happened outside of game before. We're just playing at the table. I do something. Aaron's viscerally, internally in pain. And here's the best part. I had a goal. I wanted to try to convince it to retreat. But this is my favorite thing to do. You cast a spell that doesn't do a particular thing, and then you attempt to do something that doesn't require the spell to do in the first place. And so it's just completely and utterly meaningless, and it's great. I love it.
I'm so glad that you love that, because that will forever stay the way that it's going to be. You try and cast a spell that doesn't do the thing, and I won't let you do the thing.
Oh man, it's great. But what if I would have rolled busted and it would have worked? Right? There's always that chance.
It wouldn't have.
Oh gosh, it's about the theatrics. This is a show, isn't it?
That's right.
It's
all about the drama.
Mm-hmm. Look, Tarak survived. Yeah, he died, but he survived, okay? It turned out.
I would like to state that Tarak was dead longer than Renaya was. This is
It's true.
I currently
Tarak
hold...
was dead for like 5 rounds, and Renaya was dead for like a round.
I currently hold dominance in terms of length of death.
Lydia said that moment of Aaron being upset is today's TikTok, so go look at that on TikTok. Second of all,
I hope so, because you know, it's sad because I don't have TikTok downloaded, because I would literally I'm tempted to download it.
Are you on this cast?
No.
I love how oh gosh.
Yeah, I'm
so
a
wait, no,
superior
I have a
dead
question.
person.
I have a question. Did Tarak experience anything like special while he was dead? You don't have to tell us, DJ.
I mean, DJ did. He already did tell us.
He already
kind
really?
of what Tarak was experiencing while dead.
Yeah,
I miss that?
Had a vision of himself at the Crimson Waste, like walking across the sands. You remember that time
I kind of remember
when
that.
you guys were arguing about how like terrible the Crimson Wastes are, and then Tarak was like, no, they're beautiful. When the sun sets, it's like ruby. And you were like, oh yeah, it was all in all. I referenced that and made it so that it was the red sands that were glistening with the setting sun over the horizon and this ruby-like sunset.
It was a sunrise because the ocean is to the
was
east.
a sunrise.
I love how it's like beautiful, but it's also because it's like stained in blood.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
so
like you
true.
can't ever have a glimpse of happiness because it's always overshadowed by just horror and terror.
So there's a bunch of things that Tarak is going to like tell you guys about the like wastes and like how to survive in them and like what kind of the deal is. And one of the most important things is if it is anything good or anything beautiful, it is going to try to kill you. Like, that is just kind of a universal, it's the same thing with, like, oh, poison tree frogs. It's like, wow, they're so pretty and, like, neon. And it's like, no, they're incredibly deadly. And so anything that is pretty tries to kill you. Like,
you know, I hope you give us that advice in the game.
Oh,
because I am legitimately worried for us. I mean, we don't have Havel, so he won't be touching everything. But
the one I am most concerned about is legitimate. it's you and Renaya. Because
I mean,
it's
to be
you
fair...
first, Renaya second. Because, like, Cather is a soldier, right? So, like, if I'm like, look, I agree 100%, you've got command of this unit. But right now, we're on my home turf. A good leader refers to better judgment. So, like, do what I say, so on and so forth.
So, DJ's dying at the TikTok. I hate to interrupt you, but DJ, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Could you play the audio of that for us?
Yeah.
You don't think there's no music in it that would be copyright or anything, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Would you mind playing the clip for us? I just want to hear it. Hold it up to the microphone.
This is when we get DMCA'd by our own content.
So you're gonna let CJ know we're gonna end up killing. I'll instead just cast Major Image.
So you're gonna use a spell slot on there?
I honestly
spell slot on that.
I honestly don't know how effective.
Can you use a whole spell slot?
Now, to be fair, this actually could work.
Drew trying to
sure
save
Shatter
it.
has a range of 120 feet or something.
I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do. Everyone to cast. Drum roll, please. Message.
God.
I had nothing.
The alien word, it's in your spell.
It's right there.
I'll instead just...
Oh my god.
The best part is, I feel like I know what's in Edward's spell sheet more than you do.
You know, it could
We have the alien word in your spell sheet. It's right there. It's right there.
I realized what I should have maybe done is premeditatedly
I will boot you out of the Zoom call so fast.
cast Lehman's Tiny Hut again, and then use
that's a good
spells on the thing instead of going up to the crow's nest. I didn't, I thought the crow's nest would be a good idea. I knew that the dragon would target me, but I thought it would be a good idea for reaching the dragon. I didn't know he was going to be all up in our face the whole time.
I would like to state, I am still upset that the first line attack of breath coded a wall-sized area instead of a line.
No, it covered the line.
No.
I
So
mean,
what
to
you
me,
did
it
is
makes
you
down
sense.
the
created...
To me, it makes
Up
sense.
the mast and over the mast.
So yes, technically, in terms of thematic sense, it does make sense. But what you're doing is so a dragon is here, and its breath did this. Or it moved here, and it was one beam in a constant blade. But that means that it hits every single point.
Yeah, that's what it was doing.
It hits every single point in that line for over 6 seconds of time. So
Oh,
it creates
I see
a
what you're
wall
saying.
of thing instead of a line. What it should be on like a sheet is where the dragon is located. You should be able to draw an exact line at a single moment, and everything in that line. So if it's on
So it's like an
ground level of a ship,
instantaneous thing instead of a
it isn't an over time thing. So like if here's the boat, here's the dragon, and Edward's up here where my face is. I'll be Edward. If the dragon is here targeting us on the board, it should be below where the location of Edward is. If he's hitting Edward, he should be at an angle, but then it should not hit every single person on the board. It should only be able to hit any person in that angle.
So if this is the ship, and Edward's like up over here, it went like this. It went up above all of you guys and was shooting like basically straight down.
Exactly.
So
That's the thing. It's not an overtime effect. It can't hit the beam in movement. It can only hit it at a single straight point. Not if you look at the rules.
Yeah,
that would be like. So let's say I want to cast.
Thematically, it worked really well.
It's the same thing as if I said I would like to cast lightning bolt, but run in a line. And so that way it hits the entire battlefield for 30 feet of movement.
Wait, okay, you're gonna have to explain that one.
So a dragon's
It's
breath.
still a single line. It's not like I'm just shooting around.
Oh yeah, no. So a dragon's breath is a line, right? Lightning bolt is also a line. If I cast lightning bolt and then run to the right, so that way it would not hit the entire expanse of people that I
see what you're
moved.
saying.
Because
It's like a gun
you shoot the
versus-
beam, and then it's done. Same thing with the dragon's breath, is it fires the breath,
what you're saying.
and then it's done. So it shouldn't be able to move while it's firing that breath.
It's like a
Well,
gun
it's
instead of a
interesting 'cause-
flamethrower.
Now, thematically, like in terms of logic, the dragon should be able to do that. This is where we get into
It's kind of interesting.
the role play and the game thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because it kind of will smite you IRL. Wow. It's interesting because if you think about it, the term line, because what you're saying is like a blast. It's like you shoot off a gun and you have a blast, versus a line, which in my mind makes it think it's a sustained thing because it's creating a line where you have to constantly be fulfilling that line.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So
a
that's why
line
I
in
think
the
of it a little
book
differently.
Is
You're
that
absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
So, like,
It's like
what
a ray,
you're talking
like
about is a wall. So like a wall of flame would be able to coat up to a certain height and for over a distance, but a line, let's see, has a point of origin, and then it goes in that line.
See, I guess the question
A line
would
extends
be...
from its point of origin in a straight path up to its length and covers an area defined by its width. A line's point of origin is not included in the line's area of effect unless you decide otherwise.
Is the time it takes for the spell specified as instantaneous for the breath weapon? I guess it's not a spell, but like...
It's not a spell.
Yeah. But
Right, it's not a
it
spell.
operates
That's
under the line effect. So you choose a point,
Right.
and then you draw a line from that point, and then it hits everything in that line.
Yeah.
So that is my I disagree with DJ's. This is not a thing that I would have done if I were DMing, but I also will not fight it because it looked cool.
It looked cool. It made sense too. Like I love the idea of like acid just pouring out from this dragon as he flies above.
Yeah,
us.
and
that
like,
looks way
if this was
cooler
a
than one
movie-
like. Pew.
Yeah, if this was a movie,
That's
like
the
that's what
thing.
it would do.
That's what it would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is a bit of difference between DJ's DM style and my DM style is I focus a lot more on the game part of RPG than the RP part of RPG. Where like I love the like role play and the actual game sense, but I follow a very like a video game like set of rules where like if I cast a spell from this point, it does this exact effect, even if realistically if this was like an actual combat, it wouldn't do that. Kind of I lose a bit of realism because I follow game rules more than like how things would actually work in the context.
So we're
That
just
makes sense.
learning here that Aaron's just a nerd.
I am a nerd, absolutely.
I love it.
Well,
I love
let
it.
me ask you this. So, if I had done it Aaron's way, it would have resulted with Edward not getting hit. So,
Yeah.
Grant, do you feel like I unfairly targeted you?
No, but that's
Cool,
because
great.
I usually lean towards RP.
Exactly.
So like, if you were to ask me and I leaned towards rules, like Drew would absolutely say that was completely unfair. But Grant doesn't care. Like,
So-
I don't
I
care
thought it
about
was a
making you
blast.
happy.
I thought the whole thing was
This
great.
is
Yeah.
so I'm just looking at this and I know that a lot of people already know this, but it's one of the craziest things to me is how cubes work. And I'm gonna absolutely nerd out here. Cubes are the dumbest thing in Magic.
We're
the
timing
Gathering.
you.
So if you look, I'm gonna bring up this picture again for reference. If you look here, right, you see all these things. The little dot is the point of origin. If you notice, the dot on a cube is on the side of the cube, not
have
like a
noticed
sphere
that.
that's in the middle of the sphere. So
Or
when
on
you,
the corner of the cube, which would
Yep.
make
So
more
it's like
sense.
you have your point of origin, and then a cube
and then
expands
cube,
from it.
your hand is in the middle of the cube's
Yeah.
side, which is the weirdest thing in the world. Because like if you think of like oh geez, Edward has the
Thunderwave.
spell Thunderwave. It's a cube. You like clap. You would think like it to expand from your body, but it's actually like
Right.
bang, and then there's a cube
and then
in
it's
front
in
of
front
you.
of me, which actually is quite helpful
I
for,
mean, yeah.
I guess AOE, because then I don't have to worry about my comrades that are like next
But
to
at
me.
the same time, it doesn't hit
But-
anything behind you, even though it's
Yeah.
just a really loud noise. That's a
It's pretty
like
strange.
a big force thing. Also,
think-
why is it
so
a
if you
cube?
were
Shouldn't
to-
it be a like? I don't know. It's so weird. It's
Right.
weird.
I would think it would be a cube also. I kind of like the idea where it's like, oh, you're affecting this segment of space. You know, this like part of space is where the spell will take place. That makes sense. A cube is kind of weird. I would probably think it would make more sense to either put you on like the corner of the cube so that you project it, or like in the middle of the cube so it's actually AOE and it's like just all around you, right?
Yeah, I think that the middle makes more sense, but also not for all spells. It's so strange. Like cubes
It is.
and the reason why it's like that is for like game reasons, where it's like
ease.
if you put it on the corner of a cube, the grid is square, so it's like so
you
it's
could also
just
say
gonna
like
be a,
with a cone, if you cast
well, a cone just affects anything that the cone would, any cube that the cone touches affects a character. So it's like
sure.
you could, it just looks real strange.
So
and
do
then
you
it's
think
like,
they should take out cubes and maybe only use spheres?
it's fine just from a game sense. It's just confusing and weird that it is the way that it is. Like I probably would have put the point of origin in the middle of the cube.
Sure. I feel like that makes more sense too. It is really nice, again, play-wise, to have it in front of you. But it's actually, when I first had Thunderwave, I had assumed that the cube was an AoE, because that's like kind of how it works in my mind. Like thematically, that's what makes sense. Like a big wave that you're the center of. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I learned from the door. Wait, remember the door to like Melancina's or like the catacombs?
I remember this.
Whoa. That
Sorry, I just
No, you're good. That door was when Grant learned about the cube mechanic, because I had always thought it was around me. That just made sense.
Everyone does, especially with like Thunderwave. It's a very well used, like everyone uses Thunderwave.
It's super
like,
nice to have.
Because especially, I think a lot of, honestly, the use of Thunderwave is people think that it's a good get off me ability, where like if they're surrounded by people, they can like push them. But in reality, you're only going to be able to push like maybe half of them.
Yeah, exactly. It is nice though, like facing more horde things.
Yeah.
Like when we faced all those baby skeletons, like the little cleaning crew, which was adorable. That was so nice, because you just cast it and then like the entire hallway, like 15 feet in front of you, has to be blown 10 feet back. It was like super nice. But it's in the middle of like surrounded by enemies. It's a little bit less helpful unless you have people next to you, I guess. So I feel like it's more
that
specific
encounter right
than
there.
it feels.
That encounter right there is still probably, one of my favorite encounters of the campaign. You guys fighting all the little baby skeletons?
Oh yeah, that was a good time.
I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
I'm gonna ask you a question that Maz just asked.
Wizards of the Coast, this better be good.
If you can make a new class, not a subclass, what would it be? Like, what's the gimmick?
DJ, do you have an answer? Because I think
not
I'll
off the
have
top of my
to
head.
think a little bit.
Give me like 6 seconds to brainstorm.
You got it.
And this is a whole class, right?
Like
so
an
entirely
actual,
new
like,
Whole
theme.
class, which means it has to be a kind of like a genre, not per se like a specific ability. That's difficult.
So I am going to, in the meantime, since we're talking about creating things, I still haven't put any work into it.
Yeah, please stall a little bit, because I'm gonna have to think.
Let me tell you, I was sitting there and I was actually thinking about this Christmas one-shot character, and I got on the concept of like guns and gunpowder, because I'm not a huge fan of the gunslinger class, not because it's bad or like for any specific reason. It's just not my style. But I would totally make a like an Oath of Powder, like paladin like subclass, or like something along those lines, where it's like a subclass focused around guns and gunpowder for like cleric or paladin, druid, even like something along those lines. I would love it. Have you guys thought of anything? Because if not, I've got more stuff I can stall with.
Yeah, I'm still thinking.
Okay, sick.
I was thinking maybe something like potentially like a gambling class, where you almost have something kind of like Gambit or something. Could be kind of interesting, but that was the vaguest concept I could come up with.
Well, the hard part about it is that like you can come up with a lot of
The
concepts.
hard part is
but
through multi-classing, you can create anything.
Yeah, and a lot of them would even just fit. Like I would put the Gambler. I actually have a PDF downloaded of like the Gambler subclass for Bard and stuff like that. So it's like as subclasses, it would work pretty well already. in a lot of different areas. But I think
Yeah,
my answer
coming up with a
was-
whole new class is fairly difficult.
Well, I've done it a couple of times. I've made the boxer and I've made the green warden.
Mm-hmm.
But
Green
other
Warden was
than
cool.
those, I don't know. It's difficult, as you said, because a lot of things would either already fit into another class or subclass, or just you could just already kind of do it multi-class wise.
I think what I would do, and granted, I feel like, well, I actually know probably for a fact that I have the least broad knowledge of classes and subclasses that already exist, but I think it would be fun to have something that highlights, like, quote unquote helpers more. Like you have a number of
Oh,
different.
like a summoner class or something?
Yeah, a summoner class or something like that, where you can actually have maybe more than one or different kinds of things you can summon to help you in different ways. That way it can be used via combat or it can be used via abilities to do certain things. So it's less of your character doing stuff and it's more of the things that you use to supplement your character.
I like that because there's a lot of classes that like can summon things and spells that can summon things, but most of the classes that have like a summon or a familiar or they can create some kind of creature, they do like they have that like one thing.
Exactly. So this would be like you have either a set of different things that you can have, or you can summon multiple,
You want a
something like
Pokemon
that.
trainer.
Exactly. Literally just a Pokemon trainer.
That's kind of funny. I know Ryan is going to be on our one shot, and I'm not going to say specifically what class he's wanting to do, but that general concept, I think, is the concept that he's thinking about playing for it.
Who?
Ryan. For the Christmas one shot. Another thing that I just came up with was a non-clerical healing class. Like focused on like actual medicine and stuff like that versus like healing magics and stuff like that.
So, I like
think
that
that'd
a
be really
lot.
interesting.
I have been on this multiple times. I want more like powerful classes that have nothing to do with magic. Like I want classes that don't even have the option to cast spells. But are still able to maintain strength with classes that can. Because like if you look at the chart of class strength, I should make a chart of class strength that's like over time at what levels do they really peak. Because like fighter, if you go like battle master fighter or champion fighter, the ones that like don't have access to magic, and you go all the way through, the moment you hit like level 15, all of the other classes that can cast magic drastically shoot up in strength, and you kind of plateau. Like honestly, it's more like level 12.
You become very heavily dependent on the magic items that you have.
Yep. That's why if you ever make a fighter, if you ever play a fighter, I severely recommend building a powerful weapon into your backstory. I will almost never play a fighter that doesn't, because that means that the DM has like an option to just give me a thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, you're just kind of dead in the water. And it really frustrates me because I love martial classes. I'm like, magic is fun and all, but it kind of feels more limiting to me than, because like a martial class is so general that you can kind of do anything you want with it. But like a lot of magic casters get caught into that rhythm of cast a spell, the same spell every single time, because it's just the best spell that you have. Why would you cast anything else? You do the same thing with like martial fighters, but you can make it look different every single time. You can maneuver differently, and there's a lot more positioning and things like that, and teamwork involved. But it's so hard because at late levels, if you don't have magic, you're just done for, and it's really frustrating.
You're kind of just stuck with the stuff you can do, and then
exactly.
Because it's like, I could attack you 10 times as a fighter. I'm still gonna. You don't get to talk, DJ. Let's say 20th level, you have 5 attacks. You're like, yes, I have a great axe. I'm going to attack 10 times in one round, with my action surge and everything. Let's say you're using great axe. That's a lot of damage. That's like 10d12, assuming you hit every single attack. Most likely you're not going to. And even then, that's like technically an ability from you and your full attack, where a wizard can cast Meteor Storm once
Right, and let me say this one thing
and cover
too.
80 miles of distance with damage.
I also think once you get into late game, a lot of the more challenging bosses will only be able to take damage from magical attacks, and so if you don't have anything magical that's helping you, you can't really do hardly anything, and then you're just stuck.
And
Yeah.
it's so you end up being like, martial classes make really good support classes, but in late game they really struggle with like maintaining
Keeping
damage.
up.
Like Barbarian does an all right job, but that's more of that he's a tank damage dealer than anything else. Like just the sheer amount of health carries them through. But like Fighter is so sad to me because I love the class, but they don't have like AC really is not important. I'm going to be 100% honest. AC is the least good way to block damage in the game. Because
How
like
come? Is it better
so-
to have resistance? And
well,
stuff,
the
or-
strongest armor you can get. Let's say that you have a +3 plate mail and a +3 shield, meaning that you have an 18, 20, 26 AC. I have a character that already has a +13 to hit. That means that you need a 13 or higher to hit someone with a 26 AC. That's almost a 50% chance. Most monsters are operating on like +17 to hit, like at late levels.
Yeah, the dragon had a +15 to hit in all of its attacks.
So it's
Yeah,
like
I
even
had
to 26,
zero
it needs to roll an
chances.
11.
I had like 0 chances not to get hit. What was the thing? My AC for spells. That was interesting. How the dragon would inevitably beat pretty much anything I'd throw at it that required a spell save.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. I didn't expect that.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, the stats of creatures just get so high that like trying to get it to fail a save unless you have a +5 in your score and something that's buffing it, and trying to like not get hit with like the strongest armor class are almost impossible. Like you're just going to get hit. That's why
It's
like
difficult.
it's a lot easier to tank damage by reducing damage and having health than it is to have a high AC.
Speaking of fighter, not to turn it my way again, but Edward
Poor DJ.
multi-classed in fighter.
Yes, he did.
He did.
And I have known
pretty
about it
bad.
for months.
Same.
Yeah, Aaron was actually the one that kind of helped me along like a little toddler.
Grant, you have no idea. When I went back to Nebraska to do some work, Aaron and I had a conversation where he basically explained to me how he just manipulates you into doing whatever he wants.
100%.
I know, and I know it happens, and it frustrates me, but it's also, it doesn't frustrate me, because I'm really happy to have him around, because what Aaron will do is he'll pitch something that's, like, way out of mind for me. He'll be like, yeah, but what about this? Like, for example, we had a whole conversation once about
With
why
the
mayonnaise is
superiority
the
of
alpha
mayo.
condiment. Yes, how mayo
We've
is the
talked
alpha
about
condiment.
this for 4 weeks in a row. We have mentioned mayo as the alpha
Yes.
condiment.
Okay, I'm so glad, because it needs to be talked about. We won't cover. We'll have a special table.
No.
talks on
This
that
needs to
topic.
be
No, we won't.
super. Like this just needs to be a
Vague.
running joke where we never
Yeah.
actually explain
Never.
it. We just say it.
Yep. And so that's an example. He just pitches something ridiculous, and I'm like, "There's no way mayonnaise could be the alpha condiment." And then Aaron proceeds to have a quite extensive, thorough debate as to why, and it actually makes sense. And that's the most frustrating thing, is that he is right. And so
Yeah, so
Is that he's right?
So the
Yeah,
beautiful thing
yeah.
about it is if you ever want to convince Grant of something, you just have to make it sound pretty. You have to use pretty
Sure.
words. So like when I was pitching the like fighter thing, because Grant, you and I were on a call, like you
Yeah.
called me while you were like out getting groceries or something like that.
probably.
And you were talking about like multi-classing into wizard, and you were like, I don't know, it doesn't feel quite as good because like Havel classed into wizard, and like I don't know, that just seems a little funky. And I was like, now hear me out, fighter, and you were like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, no, and I worded it. I think the words that got you were, I'm like, I imagine in the future Edward as this kind of warrior poet,
Oh yeah, that's totally what got
and
me.
you're like, I could see
Wait, don't
like
don't share
staring up,
too
like,
much. Don't share too much yet, though, 'cause, I just want to damage control here. Maz asked if I plan subclass for fighter. I'm not going to reveal anything. You'll just have to wait to see
Yeah.
what I'll do
No, heck you,
in
Maz.
the future.
Warrior poet.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the only thing I'll give you. But I think it was those words.
And I also want to share, like, so I had been hoping to multi-class with, I might just go off a little bit here about the think tank for Edward, I guess. I had wanted to multi-class for a while. And the reason was because like Bard fits Edward quite well. Obviously, he loves music. I think, with his abilities to do art, I want that to be a running theme where Edward's continuously pursuing art because, it's kind of a bit rebellious from his dad and his past, and now he's like kind of finding himself through that stuff, and there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in why. And I just love that aspect of Edward, how he's very logical and cynical, but he also loves expression. And it's just a really interesting combination. But when you look at the story and Edward's development, he didn't have a lot of reason to continue pursuing that. Not because he didn't, it's not because he doesn't love it or he's not going to pursue it, but like the main elements of the story didn't include Edward learning about or music or anything like that. And what more intrigued Edward was, I guess, recording the interesting things that were happening, and then also learning how to be typically just helpful. And he also is quite intrigued with magic. He always has been. So Edward wanted to be helpful to the party. And Bard, although I think it fits really well, it didn't seem like that became his motivation. You know what I mean? It seemed like his motivation would be more geared towards magic and being useful for the group. And so for a while, I was considering multi-classing in Wizard. And that seemed really good because like I liked the idea of like with the whole secret society that's kind of surfaced a bit with the library and Charles and how that's going to be a later thing. It all kind of made sense where, oh, here's an avenue for Edward to explore magic. There were a couple things that happened. One, Havel multi-classed in Wizard. And so I didn't want to like take the thunder from Havel or anything regarding that. And then second of all, when I talked with Aaron, he made very many clear points why Wizard probably wouldn't be a very utilizational, is that a word?
It's
Utilizable.
good enough.
Very, very utilizable class to multi-class.
It wouldn't be
with Bard.
utilized.
Yeah, it wouldn't be utilized well, and I would have to level several times, or there's a lot of reasons that I don't quite have my head wrapped around. But Aaron made a good point. And so when we were talking through different options that I could do later on, and when Aaron pitched Fighter, it made a lot of sense. And so
We're getting
the
Edward
whole
jacked.
and it was great because Edward had already had a lot of up close and personal fights. That's something that Edward does. He's a bit of a spell
So
caster
funny,
/
'cause
fighter thing.
You get stuck with like the boss in your face every single fight. And I don't even know how
without
it happens.
Without fail. And so he's
It's
clearly
because you
using
run up
his
to the
rapier.
fight, but you can't do anything.
Dude,
Right,
he doesn't
and
even like
so-
run up. He's just like kind of there, and then suddenly there's like 3 people around him.
Yeah.
I crawl up into the crow's nest, where the dragon hangs out.
And so yeah, I did choose to do that. I thought that was great. But if you were to consider like how can I make it make sense for the party or not? Yeah, the party, but the story, and then also how Edward already functions. Fighter just makes sense. And so the whole deal with like Tarak training him, which I love that entire thing. Like I love how that's phased out because it's like Edward needs help being better for the party, and Edward's willing to learn to be better for the party.
Aaron
And
needs a
Tarak,
smoother way to tell Grant what to do.
sure, and Tarak.
And it makes so much more sense because it just makes more sense because that's how things happen in real life. Like nobody gets put into a situation where, or the vast majority of the time, people don't get put into a situation, especially one that requires skills like combat or magic casting or anything like that, and they're just thrown to the wolves to figure it out. Like almost always someone is going to come alongside you and start showing you the ropes, like, hey, like you should do this because of this, and you should do that because of this, and there's a logical progression to like build up the skills that you learn. And so like the whole training with Tarak and Edward is a perfect example of what happens in real life, where you're like, hey, like I want to learn how to fight, and then someone teaches you how to fight. It's not like you just start squaring up with people in the street and learning that way by any means. So
And sometimes that happens that way, but that's certainly desired. The desire is to have somebody help. And so since Tarak already had like that experience, and the whole thing of the developing trust between Tarak and Edward is a really important piece to the whole deal for a number of reasons. And so that also offered a place where Edward could begin to trust Tarak to some extent. And so I just love the entire dynamic. And so since that's continued, it just Aaron, of course, pitching it well, it just made sense. It just made sense, and I think it fits really well. So I'm really excited, though, because Bard and Fighter together is pretty busted. Like
Pretty phenomenal.
especially once you look at like extra actions, and then you can take different feats and all those things to help it out. A spellcaster fighter,
Yeah.
I just love that. I've always loved that.
So,
That idea.
So,
So
DJ, I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm gonna cut you off again, one more time. If you ever want to kill the party, like if you ever just, or if you just want to kill like one person, just for fair, just attack us at a distance, because there's literally we can't do anything.
It's true. You guys have to be up close to the fight. Like
We
Drew
have-
can't do anything.
The closest thing we can
I think
do is
Grant is the only one that can do anything.
like
and I don't know what I'm doing.
Drew kind of has a few spells here and there that can like chip damage a little bit. Track has nothing. Renaya is like maybe has a couple of things that could do a little bit of range. Edward, you've got that hand crossbow.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, you guys lost your like power card ranged fighter,
Mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah,
To
that
go
was-
off of what
that's
you were
tough.
saying, Grant, it is tough. But this is a great segue because Maz asked an awesome question that I really liked, which is when should you start multi-classing? And I love this question because there's like 6 different schools of thought that you can go with. It's awesome. And it kind of depends on, in my opinion, it depends on your play style. Because there's 2 kind of main ways that or 2 main reasons why you choose to multi-class. One is for kind of a min-maxing type of situation where you like the abilities that you have or it fits something like that. And so you choose to multi-class to become like a more powerful character. Or you do it because it's thematic and it makes sense to your character's story arc. So it kind of just depends on
optimally,
where you're
it
going
would-
with that.
Kind of include both, right? Optimally.
Optimally, but it just
I
depends on
guess
your
it just
playstyle. Like
depends
if
on
you're
what you're
not
doing.
a very role play character,
Mhm.
like there's no real reason for you to like try and pay attention to like what the natural progression of your character is. You know?
I subclass
like-
for power.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like for the Christmas one shot, I think almost all of us are multi-classing, or at least half of us are multi-classing, not because it's anything to do with thematics. Like we can make our characters as thematic as we want, but it's because when you get to play level 10 and it's like for one shot, like you want to feel good and powerful versus like long-term campaigns where that story element is a little bit more prevalent and you get to have that progression as a character. So the way that I would multi-class if I'm going for power is I look at what am I willing to give up from the late game in the main class that I'm going to have, because you always have to look at that. Like if you multi-class at all, that means you're never going to get to be 20th level in whatever your main class is. So as long as you're okay with losing that 20th level ability, then that's fine. And then you can either look at it as how many of those late game abilities am I willing to lose, or how many of the early game abilities from the class that I'm multi-classing into do I want to gain. It's kind of how you can think about that. And then for, thematic reasons, just kind of work with your DM for kind of whatever makes sense. Like I tell my players all the time that they can do whatever they want. They just have to tell me so I can make it work with the story. So like Renaya, when she was first thinking about, like way back a long time ago, when she was first thinking about multi-classing into Warlock, we talked for, a couple of weeks to a month beforehand about like why she wants to do it, how it makes sense, how can we start to encourage it, stuff like that. And so just working with your DM to kind of go through the story elements, whether that's ones that they had already set up and that you're really enjoying and wanting to take your character through. I think when Travis Willingham multi-classed into Paladin because he was sick of Ukutoa, I think that was a really good example of like multi-classing for story-wise, or like Grant multi-classing into Fighter because of his training with all of that. Versus something like a one-shot type of multi-class where you're just going to get as broken as you can be.
Now, if you're looking
Thoughts,
to go
Aaron?
for power inside of a long-term campaign, it depends first off on what class you are and what class you're multi-classing into, because certain classes will have better multi-class ability than other classes. So, like if you look at, in my opinion, the best multi-class class is Warlock. Reason being, Warlock is
That's not what I was expecting
good
you to say.
early. It is it gets you things in the first 3 levels. That's the main thing. Like multi-classing into Wizard kind of sucks because you take a level into Wizard and you don't really gain anything. You go into Warlock, you gain an
spells and
immediate
that's everything.
benefit. Same thing with like Cleric, you gain an immediate benefit. And the other reason that Warlock is good is because the strongest level it has is level 14. And that's the second thing I look at is most classes will have a specific level that is their strongest level. And most of the time it's going to be somewhere around level 14 where their subclass kind of finishes subclassing. Paladin and Druid are kind of the worst classes to subclass in my opinion because their 20th level ability, like a lot of classes don't even get anything at 20th level. They just kind of get like, I don't know, like, oh, if you start combat without this thing, then you have it, which is like fine, but not really necessary. Druid and Paladin both have built into their class 20th level abilities. So like you kind of don't want to multi-class in those. So I look for classes that when one class gets a subclass or main class ability that I need, it lines up with another class. So like bards get abilities at level 6, I think. Warlocks get abilities at level 14. So an ideal would be 6-14 either direction. And since they're both charisma-based classes, you can kind of do that. So I would multi-class to start a multi-class. If your stats are good, multi-class at level 3. Like after level 3. If your stats are bad, multi-class after level 4. So that way you get that kind of added, you need those stats in order to survive. And then, but if you don't, then you can, but honestly, you can multi-class whenever you want. If you want to multi-class at level 2, that's honestly
100%.
still not bad. There's like optimal things, but it's fine to do whatever you want.
And
My
I
favorite thing-
had waited a level actually too. We had decided this before we leveled up to 7, but I think I wanted I can't quite remember what I got for 7th level, but there was a reason behind why I didn't, because I think I wanted the spell. I think I had access to a 4th level spell at that point, and I wanted that. I think that's the main reason.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't get a lot for 7th, like that's just an example. It was just preference. Like I didn't need that 4th level spell, but it's actually really nice. And so I actually waited 7, and then I decided once we leveled up to 8 to actually multi-class. So I think it's just probably player preference.
4th
mostly.
level instead of a message. Can't do
And
Yeah, but
one
I
of my
had
favorite
polymorph,
things,
and I wanted to save it in case.
I think the way that Lydia, let's see, you guys are 8 levels and she has 3 levels in that. So one of my favorite ways that you can, one of my favorite moments when you are multi-classing, especially if you're not like doing, you know, your first class has all your levels in that class, and then you're taking all your levels in the next class, where it's not just consecutively, but you're kind of taking one in each as you go. My favorite moment is when you're level 7 in one class and level 3 in another class, because then 2 level ups, you just do one of each and you get 2 feats in a row, and you know, 2 ability score improvement, and it's just awesome. You have like such a power boost in those 2 levels, and you feel so good. Plus you're level 12 by that point, so you're still like pretty beefy as it is. And then you have like a really awesome like power boost because you get those 2 feats or the ability score improvement or whatever. It's really a fun moment in my opinion.
Yeah, multi-classing is one thing you should always remember. In general, as a general rule of thumb, you will always be a weaker character if you multi-class, but you will have more variety in use if you multi-class. So like if you go to level
Plus you're
20
cooler.
straight, you're going to be a brutal machine of whatever you decide to do in that class. If you multi-class, you're going to lose that like huge power at level 20, but the amount of things that you can do and the different uses and variety that you'll have available will increase. So if you're going
it's
for
kind of
power,
like
I
do you
recommend
want to
not
hit hard or
multi-classing.
do you want to hit often?
Yep. That's why, once again, Paladins, I'm not a huge fan of Paladin multi-classes, because it's like, you get a big power boost at like whatever time you get Divine Smite. That's your biggest power boost, but
Yeah,
you
if you're
lose
gonna-
a lot of
if
the
you-
late game stuff.
If you're gonna do anything multi-classing Paladin, you should multi-class into Paladin and take like 3, maybe 4 levels and then call it good.
Yeah. I don't even know if I
In
go
my
to
opinion.
4. I would go to like 3 and then stop.
Sure.
And it's really
speaking-
interesting because
Go
No,
ahead.
no, no.
I'm gonna talk because I've been shut
cut
up like
off the
6
last
times.
9
You're the
times.
DM, man. I was about to change the subject anyway, so you
Yeah.
do your thing.
No. Well, it's also really interesting to me. Another thing to think about, which is the drawback of it, is the 18th level ability in your class. Because I would say typically either you have the 14th level ability, which is like your prime subclass ability, and then you have the 18th level ability, which is usually like your prime class ability. And then your 20th level is kind of a cool little spice on top of it and stuff like that. So that's another thing to keep in mind that makes it really difficult to like commit to multi-classing, because that 18th level ability can be really enticing, but also it can be really nice, especially because for a lot of multi-classes, you really want to take about 3 levels. That will usually be when you get your subclass or do whatever. And so taking only 2 levels in something almost feels kind of like a waste.
Unless you're a cleric.
Unless you're cleric or warlock. Warlock is, warlock's kind of cool. Although, what is it? Do you get your
patron at level 2, you get your pact at level 3.
And then don't you get invocations at level 3 as well?
Oh no, you get them at level 2. You get invocations at level 2? Super easy.
Warlock is kind of a cool one to only do 2 levels.
Warlock, that's why Warlock is the best multi-class. I'm gonna be honest.
Warlock. The only other one that I would argue is competitive with it is Rogue. Like taking a couple levels in Rogue is really not because of anything like cinematic or anything like that, but you just have so many really, really useful abilities that you get really early on.
I would multi-class into Rogue for the same reason I would multi-class into Bard, which is like you get abilities and like a lot of proficiencies and things that just makes you an all-around better at doing things character. I would put Warlock above Rogue because you can multi-class into it for any number of levels, and it just feels better than multi-classing into Warlock feels better than actually playing a Warlock. Like if you're using base rules, like if you play like a 20th level Warlock, you're like, I feel like officially a 10th level character. But you multi-class into Warlock, you're like, is this unlimited power at level?
That's exactly where Renaya is right now.
Exactly.
And the nice thing about it is, I feel like when you multi-class into Warlock, that's a really exciting thing for a DM because there's a patron. So now there's this really cool, powerful NPC that they get to like just like spoil you with. And so oftentimes, even if it's like you don't get all the really cool abilities of Warlock, I feel like your DM most of the time, I obviously can't speak for all DMs, but I feel like your DM might be more willing to be a little bit more like they might be willing to spoil you a little bit more with that patron, especially if you have like a good relationship with that patron versus like, if it's like Pack of the Fiend where you like sold your soul because like your sister was dying, that's one thing. But if it's like, Pack of the Ancients or, Pack of Fae or whatever, where you're like are friends with them to a certain extent, like that can be a really interesting thing. I say Pact of the Fiend, even though Renaya is Pact of the Fiend, but it's fine.
I feel like Renaya is the perfect person to like spoil you. Lydia loves it so much, and she responds so well to it. And it's the best because like if you think about all of us and how we play, like Drew might be the other one to be like crazy about getting spoiled, but it's different with Drew. With Lydia, it's just like, yay, a demon prince. That's amazing. It's like perfect. Well, all the rest of us would respond differently, but like Lydia just loves it. It's like Christmas every day. It's
my favorite thing about it is like I love that I get to spoil. It's really interesting because I get to spoil Lydia all the time, just always giving her stuff. It's helpful that her patron's like totally in love with her, so he's like totally trying to buy her affection. But
Gratz is in love with Renaya, confirmed here. You heard
confirmed, maybe, who knows. But then you have Cather, who has this really kind of like love-hate relationship with his gods. But they're still like there, and they still want to like make him feel good and stuff like that. So they'll give him something every once in a while, but it's not as often. And then you have you two, where it's like, okay, Tarak, your life is supposed to suck. And Edward, your whole arc is that you go from like having everything to having nothing and having to build it back up. So yeah, you don't get anything either.
But he had nothing all along.
It's great. I love it. I love that. I love the black and white between the two like sides of the group where it's like, hey, here's the ones that get spoiled and are liked, and here's the ones that are meant to suffer.
Have you seen the image where it's like the parent it's like helping, like teaching this child how to swim, and then in the foreground of the image there's another kid like drowning, and then below there's just a skeleton sitting in a chair. And it's like DJ is like holding Catherine and I like whoop, 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 here we go, and then it's like Tarak is like drowning, and then it's just Edward at the bottom of the pool. I need
That's
to make
pretty
this meme and post it in our Discord.
That's funny.
Okay, I'm so excited
meme
as
section.
Wow, you got
I'm
so
so
serious.
excited to see more memes as we go. So excited for that. I love memes. I want to talk about a couple of other things that happened during the campaign.
Grant,
one
don't
of
you need to
them
leave?
soon-ish. One of the
God,
things
get
is
He's been hooked.
one of my favorite scenes was when Tarek's bat died or like vanished. And Tarek just goes down and he's just like anime, like zooming down towards the ground, and he like thrusts his hammer in front of him like Thor and casts smite, and it just takes out this huge skeleton, and then Tarak just face plants into the ground and he's like out of commission.
Dies.
Now this was not hyped up enough during the episode. I felt like I was the only one that was freaking out about this scene, but it was straight up so cool.
Well,
he
here's
falls
the thing.
and he's
Drew
just like
ruined
so
it.
epic.
Drew ruined it.
Drew always ruins it.
Drew ruined it because he's like, guys, it doesn't matter if he dies. We still have 10 rounds afterwards to go get him. It's a minute. It's fine. And I'm like, that doesn't make it any less dramatic that
It
Tarak
was-
died.
It was so cool too. Track, like he's just fighting his dragon on his back, falls, doesn't care.
No, don't start
keeps
that
fighting,
hashtag. No.
even though he's plummeting to his death. It's flipping
So,
amazing. Please
I
don't
will
keep
be honest.
that hashtag.
I wouldn't
Poor
have.
Drew.
I wouldn't have used the smite if I realized that we were then going to go fight the crystal dragon. Because how much health was it at?
10.
10
Crystal Dragon?
at the time that it went away.
By the time it went away, it was at 10.
So
10
so
HP.
I attacked it
One
twice, but I only used smite on one of them because I was out of spell slots. So if I would have had another smite available, it would have died.
Well, that was not a part of the original plan for you guys to go
I know.
fight
So
the
I was
Crystal
like,
Dragon.
it's funny. I'll use a smite on this.
At least not in that capacity. The original plan, a little DM spoilers. The original plan was about halfway through the fight when you guys were fighting the Black Dragon. The Crystal Dragon was going to basically beat Kiyomora's team, and then was going to start heading for Malice. And then you guys were going to go have to basically
Ooh.
rescue Malice after fighting this Black Dragon, where you guys are like totally gassed, and then you have to go fight this dragon. I
then
do
we
make
just-
plans. Get off my case.
And
Hey.
then we officially managed to miss a dragon for like 80 turns.
Yeah, but then
yeah,
the
that was
combat
pretty
went
bad.
twice as long as I expected it to. So I was like, okay, well, we're not going to do that then. That's going to, I don't want to be here for a 6-hour session.
Should have done it.
But I don't want to like leave off a cliffhanger right before we're gone for a
Totally
month,
should have done it.
where
Right.
like they don't know if Malice is alive or dead. Like that's a little too mean
Super
in my
should've done
opinion. Although that could have that might have been cool, but
Beat them out of the game, DJ. Not
Huh?
in the game. Beat them out of the game.
beat them out of the game.
Beat them
Heck you, Lydia.
morally.
Well, I loved the although you didn't get to do that plan, I loved your what's it called? Your thinking on your feet, I guess, because I can't think of the word. When you're just like,
Ad-lib.
you know what? I'll just send the dragon over to Kiyomora's team, because then all of us were like, oh no.
That
Like, this
was
is bad.
awesome. When
Like,
you were
if they would have
"Yo,
taken
it
out
has to
Kiyomura, it would have
retreat
been
80
horrible.
feet.
Yeah, exactly. So
When
I
you were
thought
like,
it
yo, it
worked
has
out
to
really
retreat 80
well.
feet, I'm like, there's no way it's just gonna stick around and like keep attacking you guys. Clearly, you don't want it. It's not gonna simp for you guys. It's gonna go take someone else who will take care of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad the Crystal Dragon was already hurt, because it felt pretty baby. Like, we just kind of hit it a few times, and then it left. And it was like, we win. I loved it.
Well, the Crystal Dragon. So to put it in context, an ancient Black Dragon, I think, is a 22, 24.
That sounds right.
Let me look. I did it. Leave it. Let's
I
see.
also,
Ancient Green Dragon.
I really wanted to fight the Crystal Dragon, so I was so happy we got to for a little bit. That we hadn't done that before. It sounded cool. I was so pumped for it.
An
I'm just
ancient
glad it
Black
happened.
Dragon is a challenge rating 21. And then an ancient Crystal Dragon is a challenge rating 20, if I remember correctly, or maybe a 19.
Hey guys, you can add this to the compilation if
Yep,
DJ
I
flipping
knew
through
it
his
was coming.
books.
I'm so excited
I
for that
knew it
comp.
was coming.
I hope it
Gosh.
never happens. I hope
Never.
that it never shows up.
40 years later, we'll still be playing D&D.
Also,
It's never happened.
Yeah.
you can't
So an
stop
ancient
me.
Crystal Dragon. an ancient crystal dragon is a CR 19, and I never once used its scintillating.
Yep, that you did it. That's
Scintillating?
the correct. That yep, scintillating.
Scintillating. I never used a scintillating breath, and I started out with half its HP.
Let's go,
So
Kiyomura.
yeah, you guys. Oh well, yeah, I mean Kiyomura. Technically, Kiyomura is level 10. Technically, like Kiyomura is technically more powerful than you guys, but
Cool.
Also,
you
I'm
guys
just-
are the NPCs, or you guys are the main PCs. So
I'm just saying, if Kiyomura would have died there, that's a win. I mean, it's a
it's
big
not.
loss that we don't have Kiyomura, but that avoids a very bad prophecy.
That's a good point. I didn't
Listen, Aaron.
realize. I didn't actually realize that we could bring back Tarak so quickly, like as the whole shindig was going down. So Grant was totally stressed because he didn't realize we could just bring him back. But then it was
Well-
like, oh yeah, we can just bring him back. So it wasn't as bad. But I was like, how is DJ gonna wrap this in the story? I was like, if Tarak dies, and I also didn't know if Tarak would have the choice of whether or not he wanted to come back or whatever. I didn't know what Aaron would do with that kind of ability. I don't know. Aaron's an evil mastermind. Maybe
Well,
he'd
yeah,
be
if
like,
you had been on
"He's not
table
coming
scraps
back."
more often, you would know because I've talked about it before.
well,
I'm here now.
Part of
I'm
it-
here now.
it's one of the fun things that I enjoy. Grant, I don't know if I think I've mentioned this to. I know I've mentioned it to all of you guys. I don't know if you were paying attention or not,
Mhm.
but the fun thing about it is, I have some homebrew rules in place that makes it more difficult to get resurrected every time you die.
As you go. So the first
uh,
time it's easy, right? And then as it goes, it gets harder.
Yeah. So Tarak's
awesome.
Tarak's death was the first time that he had died. So he had a relatively easier time being resurrected. I mean, you have a
Mm.
minute to do it. You only need a diamond worth 100 gold pieces. You can kind of cast whatever spell it's going to be. Now that it's going to be his second time, I think it's going to be. I might lower the timeline. I'm not quite sure on that one. I need to workshop that a little bit. But you have to use at least a diamond that's worth 500 gold pieces, which is still pretty easy for you guys to get. But you have to make sure you have them now. And you have to make a sacrifice to one of the death gods. So you have to personalize it and make your case to one of the death gods about why they should be here. You can't just go over and cast a spell and they're fine. Like you have to make a case for why they should be here.
Oh,
And I
that's so
think
cool for RP too.
I think for everybody but you, that you have to do that. So if anybody dies aside from Edward, they have to go through and do that now. So next step,
Isn't
I
it
got to kill
ironic
Edward.
that Edward hasn't
Playing
died?
field.
Hey,
I'm
No,
kidding.
we've
So
been
you
trying
know
real
Edward.
hard to keep you alive.
Okay,
They
so
work really
I
hard to
gave
keep you
you
alive.
DJ. I was not planning for this. I actually didn't expect it to happen or anything. But this last combat was probably the biggest chance you had to just go crazy on Edward because he was in the crow's nest. And why is that so funny? It's so I feel a little bit
You both have
safer.
done it now.
What?
You both have done it now. Where you're like, this is your chance to kill me. As if I cannot just orchestrate the circumstances to make it easy to kill
I
you
just
guys.
like
You
the
sound
fact that you
so
said,
evil.
that you said orchestrate because that's the bad time.
Orchestrate is also about music, so it feels
Exactly.
ominous.
Man, so
Well, by default,
I would like
Rek
to say-
Renaya, yes.
a certain someone in the chat was like, we need to ban me from trying to kill Track before he's supposed to. You can't stop my plummet towards death. You can't stop this pain train. It's endless.
Tarak, your whole abilities wrap around
Involve
taking
me
damage,
getting
right?
hurt repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
What if Tarak makes it?
Track is just a damage sponge.
I honestly, so the thing is, right? If Track makes it to
No,
level, I think
that's
it's
not
level. It might be level. It's either level 11 or
it's
level
14.
15. Might be 14. I don't know. It's somewhere in there. He gets an automatic healing factor that like every round he
cool.
heals some.
Like regen?
If that happens, I don't think Track dies. If I make it to that level, Track will probably make it to the end. The question is, will I make it to that level? That's the
a hard-
problem. Because right
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
I
okay.
can just take damage endlessly until death, and I have no real way of getting it back in a constant manner. But once that happens, we're doing fine. We're doing pretty all right. Like we had like what three rounds of combat where all we did was move.
Yeah, pretty much.
100%
Yeah.
would have been pretty dang healthy. I don't even need healing. Yes, I do have a backup character lined up. Have prepared. But I don't need Edward's
it's
healing
15th
once
level.
that happens. So yeah, so I've got what seven levels for you to kill me, DJ.
No, I have plans for you.
7 levels to kill me.
Gosh,
No.
I'm so nervous.
Oh, I have plans for all of you.
I'm sure you do.
I have
And
plans.
it's
Well,
great,
actually, I shouldn't say that.
DJ.
I shouldn't say that because, Grant, I'm gonna be honest with you. Your character is hard to make epic.
That's fair.
Like,
I'm working on
comparatively.
it, buddy. Also,
Just
the whole
comparatively,
point of
'cause
Edward is
the-
that he's
no,
not
You're
epic.
great.
That's
Yeah.
the whole point.
Like, you're totally great.
I mean, he doesn't have a whole lot going for him.
Sorry,
He's
I
just-
realized that I probably just.
Huh?
Well, and it's not so much that you don't have much going for you. It's not so much that you don't have much going for you. It's just that
You're a punk.
these other characters have a lot riding on them that can reach a little bit of a higher scale. Like Edward, part of his like penultimate pinnacle is like I feel like going back and ruling Athala, like becoming the king of Athala. I feel like would be his
Perhaps.
like penultimate pinnacle. But perhaps if that's what you want, obviously. But like, Cather and Renaya have a cosmic balance that they're keeping in check. Tarak has the fate
Facts.
of a whole race on his shoulders, basically. So it's like these things kind of they feel like they're bigger than some of the things that would naturally fit Edward. Which is
Mhm.
just an interesting comparison. There's
Yes,
nothing wrong with it by
DJ.
any means. Like Edward's
I'm
still
not
an
at
awesome
all.
character.
I'm not at all one bit offended or saddened by that because that's what I love about Edward is that Edward
Cool.
is the most normal. He's
Edward,
like
that is my favorite thing about Edward.
my hope is that Edward becomes, if he's not already this, my hope is that Edward becomes some sort of very important part, but not the thing. You know what I mean? I want his ending to be a little bit almost not disappointing, but like just what happens. I almost don't want him to become this insane cosmic, the thread of fate is all that stuff might be involved, but I really, really, really love Edward being Edward.
So
and
this
that
is,
being enough.
This is
you know
kind
what
of
I
the
mean?
thing that I see is like, I imagine I might have even said this before, but Edward feels like a Sam to me.
What is that even like the NPC Sam that
N-
happened twice?
Like Sam from Lord
No,
of the Rings.
Like Sam from Lord of the
where
Rings.
like
Yeah.
everyone else
Yeah.
is like all of the other characters, and in this story especially, I feel as though our characters, even once we hit level 20, I feel like they kind of just go away. Like at the end of the campaign, like they become like myth and legend, and they might still be out there, but like it isn't like like Track is hanging out in Athala, or like Cather goes back to the gosh dang Elven Forest or anything like that. Like once you hit a certain power level, your character just kind of doesn't really need to be super present in the mortal world.
They don't fit into society
Yeah,
anymore.
just like how like in Lord of the Rings, like Gandalf and all the elves and Frodo and Bilbo all like leave to the elven lands, but like the one that remains who like tells the story and like maintains with the people is Sam, who is like honestly kind of the hero of Lord of the Rings, but definitely not the main character.
That you spelled it out really
Where
well.
it's
yeah.
like we hit level 20, we defeat whatever like world-ending catastrophe has like struck the land down, and then like we figured out the whole Ruat situation and all those things, and Cather and Renaya, like Renaya goes to like the abyss or whatever to like rule over the whatever's going on there, and Cather like wanders like throughout, I don't know, space, gosh dang, searching for justice and
He
and
just becomes a
guiding
Time
people
Lord.
into death. And then like Tarak disappears into the Crimson Wastes searching for something that he knows he'll never find. And like they might still be evidence of them existing, but like the only person who really knows what's going on is Edward when he like tells his story. Like he's like an old half elf like battered adventurer that's like, I now run like, I don't know, an adventurers guild. I'm a politician or whatever. And they're like,
Oh, who knows?
he's like, I could tell you a story that you would never believe. And then he
Now,
like
I have
goes
plans,
into like and like a
right?
thing like that.
I have plans that I haven't actually honestly shared with many people. Plans, I guess they're not solid concrete, but they're more like what ifs.
Batman.
As far as late Edward, that I'm not going to share here, of course. Duh. But I do really like the idea of Edward being the one that kind of is left to tell the tale. I love that. Even it doesn't really even matter what he's doing or how he does it. I just love that. I love the idea of Edward feeling like he doesn't quite ever fit. You know what I mean? Like he's not a fellows really. Like as far as his father is concerned and the business and all that, he doesn't really fit in with the hardcore adventurers, you know, and he doesn't really fit in with the, I guess, common classes because he's just can't relate to it very much. Maybe that'll change later, but I love the idea of him just kind of being a floater, and him being okay with that someday. But we'll have to see how the story turns out
So,
because there are so many different avenues you could take with his disposition at the end of the story. But I never want to lose the fact that Edward wants to tell the tale. You know what I mean?
Good word there, bud. Disposition.
Thanks.
That's a good word.
Thank you.
So one of the an interesting thing that has it's been like apparent to me, but I've never really like talked about it all. So one of Tarak's early things that and either way it's very interesting to me, and I can still make either one happen, assuming that I live, is that like orcs live such a short lifetime that like he would have died ages before everyone else in the party, even if he made it to like level 20, where it's like they live to a maximum theoretically of 60 years. Most of them die before they're 40. Like 30 is like a pretty good age. Like that's like an old orc. And so like compared to the elves that live for like 500, 600 years, and like half elves which live for around half that time, so 300, 60 years is like a blip in the time span of an elf. But now Trak could theoretically, if we both live to our maximum age, outlive Renaya. Because Rock Varos makes it so that way every 10 years that pass, he only ages 1. So he will be 13 for the next 10 years. So that is a super weird thing.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I must have missed that.
No, Rock Varas is busted. It's awesome. I love
It
it.
is
To clarify, for those who don't remember, it's the cool sword.
It's a hammer.
Or no, the
Close
hammer.
enough.
It's
The
the
cool
You
hammer that
got
Trak got. That the king of the dwarves prophesied he must have to like help the dwarves or the orcs redeem themselves or something. Something like that.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting, because I think one of the things that I think Trak said it to Renaya was like, in the legacy of your life, I hope to be the greatest footnote ever written, or something along those lines. Because like
What a good line.
in Trak's mind, that's like all he was to like the party, which is especially like elves, dude. Like the likeliness that you even made it to 500 and remembered who Trak is like unlikely. Or it's like, I think I knew an orc once, like 400 years ago.
Yeah.
Like that is such a
I kind of
difficult
picture
thing.
it. It's gonna be really interesting because now this is how you said the footnote in your life. So now I picture it almost like, you know how like Tasha's is written, where it's like you have all this information and then she just like puts in like little notes. So for like personal like preferences, I feel like that's gonna be the thing. You're gonna be like, this is the story of Renaya Ironblood or whatever her freaking last name is. And then you tell the story, and then every once in a while you're up in the corner, you're just like, I personally was not a fan of Gratz, but I just wanted to make my feelings known to him so he knew what was going on. And then you just like continue on with the story. Like I feel like that'd be a really interesting thing. I would love to have Tarak's diary.
But now the most beautiful thing is this is a thing that because I love the like dying super early in everyone else's lives, regardless whether or not it's natural or otherwise. But I also love characters that just live forever, because that means that later in the campaign, they can show like in a different campaign. They can show up. I play in an
Either
online game.
in the past or in the future.
Yeah, it's groovy. I play in an online game that a guy has been running since first edition AD&D. And so his world has covered almost every single edition up until 5th. Like the guy even like worked a little bit on 4th edition, like with Wizards of the Coast.
Jeez. Aaron
and
has wacky connections.
I have
guys.
no idea how it happened. I don't know, and it's kind of scary. But one of the coolest things to me is we meet NPCs that are previous players from different editions.
Cool.
So like one of the biggest influences in the campaign. We're actually level 20 with 2 epic boons right now, and we just killed Orcus, and we're attempting to kill Tiamat right now. It's a fun time.
Those are 2 major players in the cosmic scene of the traditional
we have
D&D world,
created
just in case you guys are paying
Also,
attention.
we killed Orcus in his domain, so he's like dead now.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a power vacuum.
You're at the point where you're killing gods.
Oh yeah. But we are one of the big players in this campaign has been a character named Malcolm, who is this like insane wizard who lives in a like wizard tower that he built off of the coast, where he like talks to no one and is a little bit crazy but like immensely powerful, like 20th level wizard status. And he literally has just been like, oh yeah, no, I have lived long enough that I am the only remaining person in the world who still has a interconnecting grid of magic circles, like teleportation circles. And so we've been using like his home as like a base to like teleport across the world and stuff. And I love that because like that means theoretically 4 campaigns from now, because we're going to be doing this forever. We're going to be 80 and DJ's going to be like, on to campaign 74. Here we are. And then Tarak, it could be a campaign that takes 400 years from this current time. And we're like some group that ends up, we're like in the town square doing whatever. And then like this like hush comes over the crowd as like death, because by now it's 400 years in the future. Probably at least one apocalypse has occurred.
Naturally.
A massive towering Hulk like begins to walk as the crowd splits, and the group's like looking around like, what is this? And he like points this meaty like whitish gray hand at you and says, your time has come. And then you realize that like he's carrying this massive hammer, and it's this ancient orc that's like 500 years old. And everyone's like, it's Tarak! Like you can do stuff like that, and I love it. Because also, I like to imagine that although he doesn't age every 10 years, he only ages 1 year every 10, I do imagine that his body doesn't stop growing in those 10 years.
Oh,
so, like,
cool.
he's just this, like, huge, like, and he still looks old, but
Like
he just,
mythical,
like, isn't,
ancient
like,
orc.
dead. Yeah, like,
so cool.
and he could show up in, like, some later campaign, and that's something that originally was never really an option for Tarak, because he would have died 60 years later. it's
Yeah,
like
check
if he
this
makes
out.
it through this
For-
one.
I mean, I'm sure pretty much everybody listening knows this by now, but in case you don't, I believe the plan is to have
Oh my
Nico
gosh.
Muris be the world for like ever, right? For TPD?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
as far as maybe some side things obviously won't be in the same world, like Between the Rows, it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
Nico Muris, but like for the main story, I believe that's our goal,
Mhm.
is to have Nico Muris be the setting,
Yep.
which I think is so
When Aaron
cool.
DM's campaign 3, it's still going to be Nico
What?
Muris. He just gets to do what he wants with it.
I'm in.
That's
Put me in, coach.
I love it.
We're
Gosh,
starting
I'm
off
excited.
level 20.
Great.
Level 20 campaign, starting from the beginning,
It's a 5-episode campaign.
DJ, I have
Yeah.
a question for you.
where I just blow up the
Yes.
world, and then we end the paper.
So- So
That's our going out of business sale.
Yep.
So we don't quite know,
gosh,
I
I
think
keep kicking.
honestly, as a cast, we don't quite fully know how long we're going to go, and I don't think we even
Uh-huh.
need to specify. But we've been playing for over a year, which is crazy.
Uh-huh.
And so
Oh,
I guess my question is, do you anticipate us leveling to go quicker or about the same pace as it's been since the beginning? Just curious.
Probably a little quicker at this
Okay,
point.
cool.
You guys are getting to the point where you've kind of grinded through a lot of the choss,
Yeah,
and you're
that
now at the point
Chos.
where,
Chos.
I mean, like, let's be honest here. Like, you guys just slayed an ancient dragon, you know,
True.
and while it was definitely a deadly encounter, and it was one of those encounters that like really kind of is a milestone encounter, like, or kind of a proof of where you're at counter. Like, you guys still did it with only having one party member go down just because they fell 1,000 feet, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like you guys have put in a lot of work and grinded it out. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting a little impatient. I have some really epic things that I've been mulling on for 2 years now that I'm really wanting to like get going. So I anticipate probably another year. I think around probably either late 2022 or early 2023 will be the end of this campaign. Obviously, it just kind of depends on how how the pace continues and when you guys level up. But I think,
Oh, I
I,
should ask.
oh,
We just killed an
yes.
ancient black dragon. Do we level up?
No,
Oh, dang.
you guys just leveled up 2 levels ago. No,
It's not enough.
no.
Fair.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I keep
I'm
hiccuping.
I'm so pumped for this next arc too. Like, okay, it feels like I was meant to say this earlier, but I think we got something else. It really feels to me. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it feels to me like we have, in some ways, like a clean slate to build off of now. Like
Mm-hmm.
these last, especially episode 50, but also just the kind of surrounding episodes, especially episode 50. I felt like it's been the perfect um or like recap. It's been like, okay, this is what's happened so far, and then it's like, this is what is the problem now, and this is what we're going to do about it. And that's been
Mm-hmm.
covered. And so I'm so pumped because once 2022 rolls around very soon and we get started with the main story again, I feel like we are building on like the perfect foundation for this next epic arc. Like our characters are all quite established. We've
Mm-hmm.
all like kind of established also our motivation, and we're all in this to win this kind of thing. And there's a lot at stake here. The entire world is basically at stake at this point. And I'm so pumped to see how things pop off and how we respond, because I think it'll have an entirely different atmosphere than what it's been like for the entire beginning of the campaign. Because I feel like this whole year, although a lot has happened, it's been kind of like exposition, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, we've
Yeah.
had a lot of very scattered, like, desires as a
Yeah.
party, where like especially when we like had 6 people, we had so many different plot lines going, just random overlapping, weaving directions, that it's like we really didn't have any focus, and we were kind of just going wherever. So we happened to have a problem that seemed like relative, like even Prosius was like, I mean, yeah, but like we really didn't deal with Prosius until 2 of our party members got kidnapped.
Yeah.
Um,
Until he like forced you to face him.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so like a lot of it was just like, well, I have this thing over here, I have this thing over here. Oh, the blah blah blah. Oh, this thing happened. We should probably deal with that. It was a lot of like reaction rather than actual planning as a thing that we wanted
Yeah.
to do. But now we all
Mhm.
kind of have the same general goal as for the future, and then the excess individual character goals are much more like side quest kind of things rather than the main
Yeah.
driving force of the party.
And even the characters like individual quests have hold on the immediate
Mhm.
plot, which is fantastic. It's to that point. The only wild card I think is Renaya.
I mean, Renai is always a wild card.
Renaya's always
Always.
been a wild card, but like the whole dealings of the whole world, like since her issues are mostly cosmic, yeah, this stuff matters. Like Malice is involved. Like there's a whole lot of stuff going on that Renaya probably cares about. But it's really interesting because like her at least personal things seem somewhat ejected from just the present.
At
Like
the
it has a
same
lot to do
time-
with the future and like who she is and what she's doing and what she needs to do, what she wants. And a lot of that stuff, maybe the stuff around her will help define that, but I don't know if it's like super necessary for her to be involved to figure that out. You know what I mean?
Well,
So I feel like Renaya's
at the
kind of
same
like.
time, I also really don't think that she has a specific thing that is like, oh, I'm just doing this because whatever, I have this thing that I want to do. I don't think that there's anything that anyone can really do to affect Renaya's side quest situation that she has, because it's like, where would you go? What is, like, name a location that involves Renaya's side goal.
The Abyss.
What would she do?
Just be there. Yeah, I guess you have a great point.
But
there.
like, what would
else
that
is
do?
there for her to do?
Who
knows?
It's like we'd have so little information as to what any of her situation is, that it's like nothing we really do matters. So it's like in the background, things will occur and we will react to those in the same way that, like, if we get attacked in the Scarlet Waste, we're going to react to those.
Right. Totally.
But it isn't like a completely separate goal. It's just something that kind of will happen.
And I guess she has, like, nowhere else to go in a way. Like, she can't go to Lada because Lada's smack dab in the middle of the problem. You know what I mean?
Lydia's
like,
too
what
nice
else is
of a
she gonna
person to
do?
leave. Lydia's too
Plus,
emotionally
yeah,
connected
plot
to the rest of
armor.
the characters. Like,
Fair.
like if
Plus,
I
it's
was
like
in if I was
plot,
in
like-
Renaya's situation, I would just go. So I'm out. Bye. So I don't care.
Yeah,
about you
but
guys.
you're not Lydia.
Lydia,
good.
Lydia, the player, is too kind. I don't have
Oh,
that
gosh.
issue.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry. I'm like seizing over here. This is gross.
What?
because you're
I keep
hiccuping.
hiccuping and it's causing my
Oh.
stomach to clench, and I'm like, ugh.
Gotcha.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's the
great.
problem. You see, I don't have that issue because I don't have abs.
It's not fun. Don't do it. It's not worth it.
That's so awesome. Well, guys, I fly back to Nebraska in 4 days, so I think I'm going to call it here. I thought this was great. We talked about a lot of great stuff. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad to be on Table Scraps again. It's been a while. I have a couple things to say. One, for those of you here now or watching this on YouTube or even later in the podcast, which this will be kind of an ironic announcement because you're on the podcast. So far, I believe that Table Scraps is not on the podcast, but ho ho ho, this is gonna change, because all of the one-shots and side things we've done, for the most part, will be on the podcast at some point. It's not right now, but it will be at some point, and we'll be able to slip it in basically when we did them. So right now, it's pretty much just the main campaign episodes. We'll have all the side content and the table talks and table scraps and all that stuff available on the podcast coming up here soon, probably either by 2022 or early 2022. So I'm just really excited about that. Our podcast will be beefed up a bit, and then hopefully from now on, we'll be able to continue to have our side things on the podcast, so that's not just main campaign stuff. Second of all, this is, I know I've already said this, but I'm a sentimental person. This is my last time here for 2021. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Ooh.
Thanks, Aaron. And
Get 'em off.
I thought it was, I know, right? I thought it was a great year. We have so many exciting things planned for 2022. I'm excited for it. It's just crazy that it's been how long it's been, and we have a whole year under our belt. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say. Edward's fun to play, and I like being here.
Boo.
Thanks.
No, how do you want to do this, Aaron? Should I just leave and then you have
Well,
to pick up?
I
the
already
I
have a
probably
sour.
should go as
Oh my god. So it's
Are we
just
ending
me.
it here?
sorry.
Hold on,
Or is
guys.
Aaron-
Hold
are you gonna
on.
keep going? on your own?
Aaron's gonna go draw or something, but I
I
should probably take
have
off as well.
a 2-hour time limit, and we're 15 minutes off. So we're doing something else.
Oh yeah.
Let me find the goddamn thing.
I'm so sorry, but I'm also not.
Why must you always hurt me like this?
Aaron, it's a symbiotic relationship.
God, you scumbags.
Symbiosis.
All right,
Yes,
are you guys
exactly.
gonna? Are you guys?
I'm
gonna
really
dash
excited to
thing?
get back to Norfolk because then me and Aaron can finally hang out all
So
the time
okay,
again.
so I just want to be very clear.
We might be
clear.
roommates. You might have
Oh my
roommate
gosh.
content.
I sound all the time. This is a blanket statement. I pick on Grant all the time. Grant is the person that if you don't understand who we are, it looks like I hate Grant to the core of my being. And you're not necessarily
Which is
wrong.
only 50%. Exactly.
But Grant is legitimately my best friend. Like, so it sounds
so
like
sweet.
I don't like Grant, but I am legitimately excited for you to be back in Norfolk. Like, I
Yeah,
have
dude.
been. I don't know anyone else here.
Aaron's like, I'm
I
so
don't
lonely.
talk to anyone. I am completely alone all the time.
Don't
the
worry,
only
that's
person
about
who
to
talks to me
change.
is Lydia, and she's sick, so I can't even do that. And she
We're
doesn't.
talking.
It's different because
We're
we don't live in
talking
the same place.
volleyball, right? Volleyball practice.
I've been
We're
kicked
talking
off all of my
racquetball.
teams.
We're talking. That's fine. We can play together. We're talking. We're talking going to fast food joints. We're talking. We might even room together if it works out for a
I'm
bit,
pumped.
which will be crazy
I'm jazzed.
content. Only for a short time, but yeah, we'll see. So, salute to 2021. See ya,
I'm
buddy.
excited to see
Yeah.
you back in town.
Crazy.
All right.
Crazy.
So long, friends. We love
Should
you
we
guys.
leave now? What's up?
Give me a second, and I will switch to the be right back screen.
Okay, cool.
So, guys, we will be right back. Say goodbye to everyone. Hello, everybody. I am back. We are here. I have pulled up the thing. Well, my friends have left me. So I guess that you are stuck with me now. And I sincerely apologize. This happens every time. We were 15 minutes off, guys. 15 minutes off. So what do you want to do? This is the question. I'm gonna draw. I don't have anything else prepared. I was not prepared for my friends to disappoint me like this again. Gotta fix a thing. Maybe. Can we do that? No, doesn't matter. So, draw the Rock Eater. God, TJ, I don't even know where to start. How to convey the sheer size of that thing. I don't know how to do it. Draw Tarak dying? Oh, man. Just plummeting to death. I could also talk about / draw the Christmas one-shot character that I'm going to be doing. Get a little bit behind the scenes there. Should we have Aaron drawing on the podcast? Well, so I've noticed because I've only done this once before, because the last time DJ's internet cut out and I had to do this. Me drawing is basically like listening to the least informative Bob Ross podcast you could ever do. Because I get really distracted, but also just kind of mutter to myself as to what exactly I'm supposed to be doing here. So it's just like, all right, no, that's a terrible line. Oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, blah 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 blah. Just like really, really tiny things like that. But oof, guys. Okay, so the thing is, right? I don't know how to draw. I suck at drawing track. I don't know how to draw track. Terrible. I'm not very good at portraits as much as it, strangely enough, I've drawn a lot of them. I don't know how to draw track plummeting to his death, hammer outstretched, ready to straight up pummel a minotaur. I suppose I could do that. All right. Hear me out. So, let's switch. So we've got oh no, hold on. On an eraser, I need to be on the pencil. Go boop. Oh no, and we're in lime green. Oh no, everything's falling apart. We're going to undo. Switch over to our chunky pencil. Bring that opacity all the way up. Bam. And then it's like a head. No, whoa, that's a bad head right there. No, we don't like that line. Bam. And then we're just a buff, beefy man, and then you have track. Here he is. Bam. There he is, track, hammer outstretched, plummeting towards a minotaur. Done. Art. You're welcome for this. I have no idea how in God's name I would draw Tarak plummeting towards his death. That's a long-term project if we ever do that. And I haven't even begun to ink the Tarak fighting the Dracolich, because I've had so many things that I need to do that I have not even begun. I'd be willing to draw. You see, the thing is, right? It doesn't really feel that important of a moment to like draw super crazy like, right? Oh man, this is a really tiny gosh dang eraser. Done. Nailed it. Like it was super short. And like it was like cool, but everything Track does is cool. I'm rad. I'm not sure if you've noticed, guys, but I should probably do actual work for DJ, which involves drawing things in the Scarlet Waste. But I could also attempt to draw the Christmas one-shot character, because I'm a terrible procrastinator, and that's what I do. So between those two, which would you all prefer? Scarlet Waste things or Christmas one shot? That's right, I'm narrowing it down. Your guys' choice. Christmas one shot. That's one. Unless someone refutes this statement. That's where we're at. 10, 9, 8. Once I get my chair turned around, it's all over. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. All right, Christmas one shot it is. That's what we're at. So I already know what character I'm going to be playing for the Christmas one shot. I'm going to be playing a character named Arwin Kapawick. I'm basically going to show Grant up because he is a fighter bard multi-class. Specifically, 6 levels fighter, 4 levels bard, I think. Might be something else. Something along those lines. Bard is College of Eloquence. Fighter is Battlemaster Fighter. And it's gonna be a fun time. He is a kind of a support class. Support mixed with like battlefield control. Oh geez, there's a term specifically that I'm looking for. I can find it here just a sec. No, that's where it is. Is that it? Oh yeah, just controller. Controller is the kind of archetype from 4th edition that he would line up with. Very much like both friends and allies manipulating turns and movement and battlefield abilities and attacks and things like that. Buffs and debuffs, so on and so forth. He is a soldier background. Pretty standard for a fighter class. Specifically, he was known as Commander Kapowick in his troop. That will be somewhat an involved thing. I want this to be up at like what, 30? That's a bit too bold. Let's put it 25. That's not bad. Oh, well, go for it. Get rid of that nonsense. Oh geez, where do I want to start with him? So his main kind of elements. First off, I want to give myself kind of a frame of reference as to. Well, I probably should try to do like a full portrait of this guy, just like line work. Not gonna do anything crazy, style wise or coloring or anything like that. But he was like a general, a like very high-ranking officer in the military that he was a part of. He is no longer a part of that. Oh man, should I do just a bust or should I do the full body? Because the body is going to be much worse than if I just draw like a portrait. Because there's a whole lot of things that go on in bodies, and I don't know how any of them work. Start with a bust? Alright, so first off, he is very human. So let's get to work. Let's see, how do we want to start? I kind of want to start with his hat. I feel like he wears a very large, dumb hat. I feel like that's kind of what he does. Not a dumb hat, but like I think like almost like a British naval officer hat or something along those times, like Civil War era, like a dumb. Probably should do like a 3/4 profile. So first off, one of the things that I want to do. There's the frog that we drew last time. We're going to enable always on top. We're just going to drag that frog out of view. Let's go here. Let's see if we can't find a... The problem is I can't remember the name of the hat. Maybe it isn't even a Navy thing. Oh, here's one. Oh, is it considered a bicorn hat? A Napoleonic... Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the dumb hats that I'm thinking of. Yeah. Alright, let's see if I can find a good sketch. Sorry if this is just a bunch of you guys not being able to see me do anything. But who knows what happens when you search Napoleonic bicorn hat sketch. It's not exactly what I'm looking for, but it's pretty close. Oh my god. Who is messaging? I didn't send that. Who sent who's watching this? Drew, is that you? Are you here? You watching us do frogs? The paper dungeon. I'm so confused. Well, I can't find a good image of the hat that I'm wanting. But so if we've got, how do we want his face to go? We're going to probably start. Let's give ourselves a box to work in. Sometimes if I'm struggling with a face, I try to give myself an area to work in. We're going to start like here. Because if I know, like let's say, if we're doing a 3/4 image, and I want the head to fit in here, then the top of our head is here-ish. We might end up with a side profile. But then again, how do I draw this bicorn hat in a side profile? I bet I could do it. Then we work from there. Oh no, that's so Grant. No one other than Grant would talk that dumb. Only Grant refers to the paper dungeon as the all-powerful entity, the paper dungeon. You can't fool me unless you have and you're actually like Drew, because that's the only other person I could think of who would like actually watch on the paper dungeon account. Like a fool. I don't mind side profile. It's been a while. Side profiles are not easy for me to draw much of the time. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge of our canvas. Ooh, whoa. Let's not make a question mark there, buddy. Say his jaws. Somewhere about there-ish. Options that we'd have something like that in terms of basic shape of what exactly we're going for. Obviously things would be a little bit more rounded. And a little bit more cut. Oh my god, we did end up with a 3/4 profile. Woohoo! Dog, I'm down to do whatever. If you want to make custom music to play while doing art, that's fine. Play it in the background. I don't understand enough about how the program works. Like how to run Streamlabs well enough to like do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But if I am informed as to how to do such a thing, then I am down for whatever. I'm sure they would make it a lot more interesting than just listening to me mumble quietly in a random direction as I draw a portrait of a guy So we're gonna do some rough estimations of where body parts go, because I am no professional artist. I dabble. Ears are dumb. Never forget this. Now we should also have. Woohoo! Got a schnoz on that, buddy. So one of the weird things about eyes that I notice is that you can kind of draw, like, where is the nose on this person? That's kind of where his head is facing. Maybe let's lower the eye a bit. And Grant, I would appreciate music. That would be very kind of you. I don't like where that neckline is. I want this to be. He's not a broad man by any means, but like, he was in the military. He's done some stuff. How bad is it? Like, is it still intelligible, or is it just like... Because I can't tell on my end how off or on the mumbles are in terms of, like, actual hearability. This man's got a real short forehead. Can tell you that much. That's fine though, because we can cover up how dumb the forehead looks by giving him like a big hat. Anyone can see how anyone can mask a forehead with a hat. Trust me, I have no forehead, but with this hat, it looks like I actually do. But in reality, my hairline is where the hat edge is. It's right there, which means that I have like 1.5 inches of forehead. So, you know what would be cool, Grant? Could you imagine if you composed the music for the stream on table scraps? Gotta start thinking big, Grant. Gotta start thinking big. Let's get rid of our hat lines there. Which means that our mouth is somewhere around there-ish. Still not liking the placement of these eyes. Which means that our nose... Let's get rid of these background lines. Switch to the eraser friend. I kind of want him to have a bigger nose, like a real like Roman nose. Well, Grant, what I'm saying is you should compose the music for the stream on the stream. Like that would be such a good episode of Table Scraps. Is you just like composing music and stuff? That would be sick. Also, I have realized by taking a step back that the reason that the nose looks wrong is that it's not close enough to the mouth. Because like if you put the nose up here, right? You're like, ooh, you got yourself a nose, bam, nose. Actually, that's closer than the first one, but like look how much they got. Like, hello, look how much distance is between the gosh dang nose and the mouth. In reality, people don't have that much distance. It's like, what, half an inch? Also, just saying, for a very quickly drawn nose, that was like the not worst nose I've ever drawn. Lips are harder for me to draw than noses. I can tell you that much. That probably goes a little bit too far this way. I think a lot of the problem is that side of the face. People's heads are way more curvy than they should be. We're gonna try this. You know what this feels like? This feels like, you know, like customizing a Mii on like the Nintendo Wii, where you just like try a bunch of different face shapes that are just like vague, like geometric shapes. Like that's what this feels like. It's just like, I don't know, that jawline seems a bit wrong. Like, ooh, not that jawline. Bam. Chin. Jawline. Art is the dumbest thing in the world. Drawing people especially is like disturbing. Like suddenly that's a face where like 30 seconds ago it was way worse, and I have no idea why. Now admittedly now our neck is like wicked long, but like, you know, that can be fixed pretty easy. Give him some traps. Bam, traps. Like Cather. Now we still have the problem of this nose being just an absolute pain in the neck. Now the other thing that we have to ask is how like animated do we want this person to be? Do we want it to be like a line art, like more cartoony, like sketch kind of thing? Ooh, wow, he's got some chonky ears now. Ears are not that big unless they are, and suddenly it'll just randomly look right. I'm pretty sure that they're too high up is the problem. Let's give them some smaller ears. I'm sure that there is a very clear like way to determine where different features on the face go. I have never learned that, and I don't intend to. I'm just going to eyeball it until the end of time. Because, like, we could just have, like, our nose be a very basic, like... no, too much. Maybe I just want this. And then... like a very, like, instead of drawing like lips and like really like accurately making human face, just being like mouth. Bam. Which is a question that I don't know the answer to, and I may never know the answer. Ooh, an inquisitive eyebrow. Oh, giving a scar through the brow is certainly a way to go. I kind of want that to be lower. See, that's the beauty of digital art that I don't get in like paper, like pen and paper, is the ability to just pick up and move a thing that you drew. It's pretty sick. The other thing, now this once again adds up to that question of like how so this is the thing, like how comical do we want it to be, because we can always do the like, one of my personal favorites is the like Tintin style of eye, which is just like bam eye. Like, I love Tintin eyes. They are gifts from God and should be admired as such. This gives me a bit better. Bam. See, now he has a kind of normal forehead. What if we spin it just a little bit? Now he looks determined. Whew. Look at that. Look at that man. Oh yeah. Get those Tintin eyes going on. Whew, that eye's a bit too big. See, this is my problem. I get too distracted doing things that are fun to actually finish the piece of art. Because I know that I'm just going to erase this because I hate it. But I find it too entertaining to not. Draw this Tintin scar eyebrow man. I don't know how I want to get the eyes. It's a question that I will have to discover. I also don't know if I want like the connected nose. Maybe a little snub nose. Too much snub, kill it with fire. Bam, nose. Hmm. No. Sometimes I get in this point where I've drawn 1,000 eyes. For the life of me, I can't remember how I ever did them. And that's when we refer to old artwork to remember, how in God's name did I ever draw eyes? If you are ever interested in looking at previous things that I've drawn, or things that have been drawn far better than I did, because we have better artists in the group, namely Lydia, who at the time does own a store, a cute little shop where she is currently selling a Christmas collection. It's pretty great. I am wearing the merch now, some of it. It's really sweet. Go check it out. Buy it. It's awesome. Back to scrolling through images of art. Where are we? Where really are we in the essence of all things? Oh, I don't mind that. Let's try that out. Oh. Let's feather down this collection a bit. Let's try to determine where exactly the eyes are looking. Where the eyes are looking is a incredibly difficult thing to do, and I have no idea how to do it correctly, and so you just kind of move the eye around until eventually it works. I like it up better on a smaller scale. I don't like these eyes as much. So now we scroll and look for other ones. No, those eyes are too big. Too realistic. I've drawn too many faces. That's a pretty close one. Let's get rid of the eyebrows for now. Let's start with the eyes, work on the eyebrows after, see if that helps anything. Yeah, music would be nice, because there are times when I don't really want to, like, speak, because I'm concentrating on a thing. But then I feel bad, because there's just this, like, empty silence. No. Eyes too big. Where's our hairline? Which means that our nose might be a little bit off. I'm gonna put eyes here and here. Correction, I would put them a little higher up. Facial expressions terrify me because they can do so much in like so little time. Like a tiny little change suddenly makes someone upset or happy when you were trying to make them sad. And let me tell you, I don't know what it is that makes it do that. Maybe we will do that. Maybe we'll combine them a little bit. My favorite thing, so it's actually not my favorite thing. It's one of my least favorite things. There are times in a piece of, in when I'm drawing. Goodbye. No, you don't, Wander. You don't want to be famous. It's not fun. There are times when I'm drawing that it gives a very, like, I'll be drawing a thing and I'll immediately think, oh my god, this looks like something that I would see on DeviantArt, and I hate it. Because then I'm in that rut, and then all I can think of is what DeviantArt looks like the style of art, which is, there's nothing against it. Like, it's a wonderful website, and it's a good place to, like, release, like, things and draw things, but it's not, like, a vibe that I personally aspire to draw. But then I start thinking of it, and every time I look at a thing, it just makes me go, oh shoot, that looks like something I'd see on DeviantArt. Like this eye specifically, like especially if I draw it in. Bam. Look how anime that eye is. Oh shoot. We've stumbled across another thing. Anime eyes. Man, look how soft this boy is. He was not intended to be this soft, but here we are. Let's make that real anime eye. Bam. Now the eye is in a bad spot. We're going to do some clever shifting. To erase. Ugh. Terrible. No, I hate it. Never mind. I've decided that I don't like anything that's going on, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. Welcome to Aaron is upset because drawing things is difficult. This happens actually pretty often. I don't like where it's going, so I just start from scratch. But it may be a scratch that you guys will never see because I have been going for 2 hours and 30 minutes. F in the chat for the strong small boy, that round anime-eyed boy. But it's been 2 hours and 30 minutes. I still have 2 finals that I need to do for college in order to pass the semester. So I should probably get on those. And you guys probably have your own lives to lead, regardless of whether or not it's just sitting there and doing nothing or something else. But, so I hate to leave everyone with a blank canvas. But I think I might have to. Thank you everyone for watching me bring back the frog. I don't even know how to do that anymore. There he is. There's the frog. Or if you're asking about the frog that we drew, there's our frog. People harder to draw than frogs. Believe it or not. I'm not very good at a lot of anything that you see that I've released that is like a portrait of a person. I probably drew over 10 things that were all aiming for one, and then 1 out of those 10 I liked enough to post. So it looks good. It isn't. I'm not that good at drawing. Anything that I draw is most often just complete luck. That it ends up, I'm like, oh, that looks really great. Most of the time it ends up as our soft anime boy, where I look at it and I'm like, I hate this, it's terrible, I don't want to see it anymore, and then I just throw it away. Now, the thing that I will always preach is, most of the time, you will see something and you will go, I hate it, it looks terrible. And most likely you are just at a point where no matter what you do, it will look like a potato. If you're at that point, it's probably going to turn out pretty dang good. The thing is, although I know that, and I can keep struggling, I also realize that it's the same amount of struggling as I would have just starting on a new thing. So if it's just like sketch and line work, if you're in the middle of working it and you go, wow, I hate this, it's terrible, finish it. Still finish it. Because it will be probably better than you think that it is looking at it the way that it is now. Especially if it involves color. Color is the worst. Where you're just like, oh, it's all blocky and gross and I hate it and the color is terrible and ew, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. Most likely that means that you're on the verge of it looking pretty alright. If not good. But for line art, especially if it's just like quick sketches of like a character, I'm gonna give it one last shot. The fastest I've ever done. We've got, bam, jawline. We've got our beefy nose. Ooh, too much. Undo. I forgot that I have brought it to maximum size on the eraser. We're actually going to, bam, chin. Ready for this speed draw time. The nose goes up and over. Bam, jawline. Jawline acquired. There, so just so I won't leave you guys with an unfinished canvas. Ooh, too much nose. He has one honking nose. Like I mentioned that I wanted a Roman nose. That's a bit too much. Bam. And then we're gonna move the whole thing. I got distracted again, so I'm sorry about this. Gotta get rid of this. Go up to here. Then we're going to draw a big bicorn hat. Erase the inside. It's hat time, baby. We're going to big feather. Big plumy feather. Bam. There's our man. There is. That's a full thing. It's all done. Give a little bit of... We'll keep the anime eye in. That feels like a necessary... Bam. There, our majestic sailor boy. There he is. That's the guy. He has his hair all tied back. Oh shoot, I just drew the worst George Washington. Crap. Well, thank you all for watching. And watching me draw the worst drawn George Washington in history. It's been a blast. Check us out on our socials. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Watch our main show on Mondays. No. Wander. This is just between us now. This is just between us. Yes, also check out Lydia's store. Thank you, Wizard of the Coast, for being our hero on that. Lydia sells really cool stuff with art much better than whatever this is. So check it out. Other than that, I think the only thing that I have left to say is good luck and Godspeed. I will see you next week, Dungeoneers. And yes, I will be here next week. Christmas, not important. This, important. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope the holidays find you in good health. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. I'll need it.